Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show. Glad to have you with us, as is always the case, here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. We've efforted what we think will be a fun show for you today. Gordy Chiesa is going to stop by in half an hour. We'll be talking, of course, about the Eastern and Western Conference Finals, primarily in the NBA. The approaching NBA draft might get a little attention as well, as the Utah Jazz have the 5th pick. And the Minnesota Timberwolves picked down at 21. Some interesting stuff coming out of the National Football League. Football season drawing closer and closer and closer. We'll be starting officially our countdown clock next week. Can't wait for that. The season draws near. So get all the vacationing, camping, weddings, baby showers, get all that out of the way before the fall sets in, all right? You've got 3 months to cram all that stuff into what we hope is a beautiful summer. It's been a wet spring, right? So we should have some good lake days, some nice green hikes in the mountains. If you're down there in southern Utah, T's and P's because the drought is bad right now, but up here in the northern part of the state, I think we should be in some pretty good shape. Hopefully wildfire season doesn't get too bad. But, man, Bluebird Day, beautiful blue skies, a light dusting of clouds. I'm looking out the window at our Broadway studios, and you can still see the snow-capped mountains. Man, we are lucky to live in the state of Utah. We are lucky to have a Utah Mammoth hockey team. We're lucky to have the Utah Jazz, even though, I know. We're lucky to have 2 nationally relevant Big 12 football teams. Lucky to be here on the home of the Utes. Show today and every day is brought to you by our friends at Les Schwab Tires. Plenty of locations up and down the Wasatch Front. Stop by any of them. Tell them that OC sent you. They've got tires, wheels, accessories for whatever you drive. The pros there always get the job done right the first time. Les Schwab Tires hooking us up, and they'll hook you up as well. Let's talk a little roster construction. We're seeing the benefits and the pitfalls of certain types of roster construction in the NBA playoffs, right? We're seeing it kind of take shape in the NFL as teams have to figure out how to play with what is the only professional league with a serious hard salary cap. Well, I guess the NHL does too, but with the NFL, you're talking much larger contracts and a hard salary cap that teams have to figure out. There are fewer mechanisms for player acquisition in the NFL than in any other league. The international scouting that happens in hockey and basketball is, for the most part, still in the developmental stages for the NFL. And I bring this up because we know that Utah is going to be going up against other teams in the Big 12 Conference. And if you make it that far into a college football playoff and on the national scene, you're going up against teams that right now are not dealing with salary caps. You're dealing with teams that have potentially double the pool that you have. Now, in baseball, you see this with the Dodgers and the Yankees and the Red Sox paying twice as much as the Mariners and the Sacramento A's. Is that what we're calling them this year?
Yeah, well, technically still the Oakland A's, but playing at the Sacramento Rivercats Stadium, yeah. Did you hear, speaking of baseball, discrepancy in salaries and payrolls? When the Yankees played the Marlins this year, the Yankees, how much bigger do you think their payroll was?
I mean, double.
$405 million gap between the Yankees payroll. Or no, sorry, it was Dodgers Marlins.
Marlins.
The two $405 million cap or payroll gap between the Dodgers and the Marlins. Which when Billy Beane, I read it was an article in The Athletic. I forget the author right now. When Billy Beane was complaining openly about how hard it is to build teams in Oakland versus New York, and he and his team came up with the Moneyball principles that dominated the sport for the next little bit and kept the A's relevant. There was like a $70 million payroll gap between the Yankees, who were number one, and the A's, who were last. $400 million, OC.
It's absurd. Also, you know how we did this earlier in the year? We talked about how it makes no sense that the Atlanta Hawks are not a power franchise in the NBA.
Yes.
Because it's a place where everyone should want to be. Every basketball player should want to be. And, you know, I said this for years about Arizona State football, and finally it looks like they're emerging from their slumber as a sleeping giant that's now waking itself up. The Miami baseball franchise, the Miami Marlins, you're telling me that you can't have an interested fan base in Miami, that you can't be fielding a great baseball team in Miami? That makes no sense at all. Miami, like look at what nationality, cultural demographic, however you want to say it, is a huge part of baseball, professional baseball now, right? It is the Caribbean and South American nations. Obviously, you know, your best player in the league is probably from Japan at this point. You've got the strong American contingent as well.
Yeah,
but
it's still majority white players, but the Latin influence and the Caribbean influence on baseball, along with the Japanese and Korean and all of that influence since Ichiro, is undeniable.
And Miami is the melting pot city outside of New York, the melting pot city for Afro-Caribbean and South American culture.
Absolutely. Cubans everywhere in Miami.
Cubans, Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, they're everywhere.
Haitians, all those Caribbean Oh, and
by the way,
Latin cultures are all there.
By the way, everyone likes to live in Miami. The white players are going to like it too. It's crazy that we're talking about a Miami Marlins stadium that has 3,000 people in it on any given day game.
This has been a problem since when they were the Florida Marlins, also playing in Miami at the old Marlins Stadium. I don't even remember what the name was for that, but they never drew well. Baseball in Florida has always been terrible when it comes to attendance for some reason, and you're right, it doesn't make any sense for Miami in particular.
You need an indoor stadium? Is that it's just too
maybe
hot?
I don't know.
Too humid? You just need air conditioning? I don't know. Figure it out. Anyway, so the disparity of pay that you see in some of these baseball games is a reality in college football.
Yeah.
Right? It's not a reality in the NFL because of the hard salary cap, except you can make decisions about your roster that make it kind of seem that way. And I put a poll question out at Real OC Sports. 877-353-0700 is how you get a hold of us if you want to call us or you want to text us. And you have to make a choice. If I put you in charge, you're a general manager, which is now a position in college sports just like it's a position in professional sports. You got to make a decision on whether you're going to have elite players at the top and pay them, or you're going to try to build depth. Now, there are some teams, Oregon, Ohio State, Alabama, they're doing it all. They're trying to do it all at least, right? But we saw, for the most part, an increase in parity across top-level Power 4 college football last year because, well, not because teams like Ohio State and Alabama don't want, or Miami, they don't want, or not, they're unable or unwilling to pay guys to be on the depth chart, but because players just don't have to do that anymore. You don't have to wait your turn the way you used to have to wait your turn. And NIL has made it so it was kind of like it was still worth it to be a guy who went to Alabama and sat for 3 years or 2 years because you were going to be part of national championship teams as a backup, and then when it was your turn, you were going to be part of teams that competed for national championships when you were starter. And so it's still kind of worth it. And plus the way that they were building guys for the NFL, et cetera, et cetera. Now, if you're a player that in the past, 5 years ago, and I'm not telling any of you things you don't already know, but if you're a player who 5 years ago would have been a backup quarterback for the University of Alabama, you can now be the starting Ole Miss quarterback or the starting Vanderbilt quarterback or the starting Central Florida quarterback.
Northwestern.
And make a couple $1 million.
Rutgers.
So it actually makes no sense to go and sit and be a backup quarterback making, I don't know, either very little or nothing, with rare exception, the Arch Mannings of the world, right?
Yeah, I mean, when guys just have a different mindset, that's where a lot of that exception comes in. Arch Manning could be a starter probably anywhere in college football. Probably could have been. At least would have been given that opportunity to be. They wouldn't have been like, you know what? We're gonna have you sit behind our veteran quarterback anywhere but Texas. But his mindset is, and his family has instilled the mindset of, no, like, you're gonna do it the old school way. You're gonna take the learning opportunity that being a backup brings, and you're going to be hopefully even better as a starter because of it.
And by the way, that mindset is a lot easier to maintain when you are making as much or more than the starter
Absolutely.
as the backup.
And
right?
you grew up in a wealthy family, all of that.
That's not going to be a reality for Diego Pavia, who got his extra year of eligibility, right? Like, if he's
not going to be as patient.
If he decides he's going to go be the Oregon backup quarterback, he's not getting $4 million to do that. And so when the phone call comes like, hey, we want you to be the starter here, we expect you to be the starter here, and that's any assortment of schools. I'm not just talking about the Blue Bloods. I'm not just talking about the big boys. Like, the University of Minnesota is going to pay you over $1 million to be their quarterback now.
Sluka, how much the UNLV, former UNLV quarterback, he was getting a nice payday at a Group of 5 school.
Well, he
was supposed to anyway.
The dispute was that they were supposed to give him $150,000 that he never got.
Yeah, $150,000, which is like, you would think
when you're 20 years old, and you're a single you're a college student, that's $1 million basically.
Yes, you would think at a Group of 5 school the gap would be, you wouldn't still be getting 6 figures to be the quarterback, but we found out last year, allegedly, that was the amount that the former UNLV quarterback was supposed to get, and allegedly didn't. That's why he's left.
As teams are trying to make this decision, like Utah has to index in a way that's like, okay, I'm going to pay. Yes, we want depth, but we don't have this bottomless pit of money that we can say, you're a backup here, we'll keep you happy as a backup. Here's $100,000 or $200,000, and you're going to be a rotational player and be happy here. Like, Utah has to identify and pay talent based on their ability to start this year, right now. And yes, the recruiting pipeline still means players are going to get paid, but we're talking about a massive gap in money, right? And Utah, I think, has handled it pretty well. The way that there was a lot of attention paid to the fact that you lost Keanu Tanuvasa. The thing is, you were able to retain guys that other teams wanted even more than they wanted Keanu Tanuvasa. Smith Snowden, everybody in the country wanted Smith Snowden. I'm exaggerating only a little bit there. Fano, Lomu, I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that every team in the country would have taken those guys if given the opportunity. So, and BYU is dealing with kind of a similar deal right now. Does it compromise depth? Well, yeah, because it even compromises depth for Oregon. It even compromises depth for Alabama. You don't have the guy, the 5-star who's willing to sit, the 4-star who's willing to sit as willingly as you used to. Those guys, especially at certain positions, key positions where only one guy's getting reps, they're going elsewhere. Like, watch this, okay? Everybody do me a favor this year and see how bad special teams kick coverage is kind of across the board in the nation. Do you know why that's the case? Because
backups aren't as good?
Backups aren't as good in most places. Now, the schools that are going to be exceptions to this rule, but there was a time, Cody Barton's a great example of this. Cody Barton, who's now an NFL starter, right, worked his way from being a special teams guy exclusively as a young player, right? That guy, for a long time at the University of Utah, for a season plus at the University of Utah, was a sparingly used rotational mop-up time linebacker, but he was a staple on special teams. He was a guy who ran down on punt coverage, who ran down on kick coverage, who was on the kick return team throwing blocks, even though he's a linebacker, right? Watch how poorly executed a lot of that special team stuff is now, because those guys who are really high-quality players are not sitting around anymore and waiting for their turn, and they're having a harder time being patient with the development, and that was the role that you played as you were climbing the ladder in a lot of these teams before. And now, like, there's two ways that teams can do it. All right, well, we're just going to have our starters play special teams, and some teams did do that last year, and some teams will do that this year, and then other teams are going like, well, I guess, you know what, it's the freshmen that are playing special teams. And that's, like, it's fine. You got to do what you got to do. But I remember watching Cam Scadaboo run down on kickoff last year for Arizona State, and I was like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
Why are they having him do that? And he's just a football guy, so it works out in the end. But I was like, that's insane. Someone that valuable to your team doing that is risky. Anyway, I don't want to digress too far on that, but your depth is almost always going to be compromised if you have to be selective and pay at the top. And that's not just in college football. The reason I actually got on this train last night as I was preparing for the show, doing my notes for the show, is, James, because of my favorite team in pro sports, the San Francisco 49ers.
They've been paying their veterans this offseason, OC.
Fred Warner just became, for the second time in his career, the highest paid linebacker in the NFL. He got an extension, a 3-year, $63 million extension from the San Francisco 49ers, putting him number one in guaranteed money, average annual value as a linebacker in the National Football League.
Deservedly so.
He's
shout out to Fred Warner. Happy for you.
He's incredible.
Yeah.
Love him. He's an unreal player, right? Yes, you have to spend that money when you have the best linebacker or definitively a top 3 linebacker in the land, and it's time for him to get his extension. That's what agents do. They say, you want to lose him? Then just make him anything less than the highest paid player in the game. The 49ers can't afford to lose him. They've already lost too much talent defensively, so they're just like, yeah, we'll pay an extra $3 to $5 million a year and make this work. But I'm looking at the San Francisco 49ers roster, James. Do you know who's the highest paid tight end in the NFL?
George Kittle.
It's now George Kittle. Brock Purdy's contract extension.
Not the highest paid quarterback. Significantly more than he was making before.
And it brought him into the top 8 and into the top 5 in terms of total contract value.
Yeah, I heard, and I think you agree with me on this, OC, based on our off-air conversations and based on your conversation with Spence during Crosstalk yesterday. I heard a lot of people, there was a good number of people that said when you pay up front, it becomes a better team deal as the years go by. So this is a good team deal. That might be true objectively, but because he was barely making $1 million before that, the Niners are struggling to keep their otherwise otherworldly talent that they had on the roster the last couple of years when they went to Super Bowls and NFC Championship games, because it's like 50 times more than what he was making before. So even though
he went from being like 0.5% of the total salary cap number to 1/4 of the salary cap number,
which is like, that's why they trade Deebo Samuel earlier in the season. That's why they lose some of the other defensive players that you alluded to when you talked about Fred Warner getting a bigger deal. And then on top of that, giving more money to George Kittle and Fred Warner takes the cap takes even more of a hard hit. But the significant one, even though, yes, by the time Brock Purdy's contract is over in year 5, it's gonna look like a really team friendly deal because the cap just keeps going up and up and up. this is in the short term. This is going to be really rough for the Niners from a team building perspective.
Here's how it works for the San Francisco 49ers right now. If any of these guys gets hurt, you're screwed.
Yeah.
We saw that last year. Christian McCaffrey is a top 3 highest paid running back in the game. Okay? Brock Purdy is now in the top 10. That's probably still, by NFL GM standards, is probably still, like you said, a team-friendly deal at the end of the day. Trent Williams, your left tackle, top 3 offensive tackle payday in the game. The top-paid linebacker is now your guy. The top-paid tight end is now your guy. Top 6 wide receiver in Brandon Ayuk.
Because of their deal he gave him last offseason.
Top 5 pass rusher in Bosa. Do you see the point that I'm making here? You now, if you're the San Francisco 49ers, and again, I don't know what you do otherwise because these guys played well, kind of proved themselves, and you have to cut the fat somewhere, and they chose, all right, Deebo Samuel, he's not real happy here anymore.
His production's gone down. His availability's gone down.
Yeah, his durability is now calling into question. Well, let's see what we can do asset-wise and free up some money with him. And, I love that the San Francisco 49ers have top 5 guys at all these important positions. I do. I love it because, when I think of Bosa, his production hasn't said so this last year, but, talent-wise, he's up there in terms of pass rushers, right? Fred Warner, I think, is the best linebacker in the league. Happy to pay that guy. You will not find a bigger George Kittle fan than me in the world. George Kittle is not worth being the highest paid tight end in the game anymore. He just isn't.
3 years ago, absolutely.
Yes.
It's 3 years later, though.
This is a Lifetime Achievement Award contract for George Kittle.
I'm not completely anti those kind of deals, OC, because it's a good thing it shows loyalty, it shows appreciation, but it also, does it come at too much of a cost against the cap? And that's what we're going to see this season with the 49ers because, like you said, they've had to sacrifice a lot of their depth in order to reward a guy like George Kittle for the great years of service he's given to the 49ers.
And this is what's so tough about it because, again, you could do the New England Patriots way of things.
Yeah, let people go before they command big money.
Where they're just like, all right, dude, Albert Hainsworth, you're asking too much. Remember when that Hainsworth deal happened?
Did he start with the Pats, Hainsworth?
Yeah, he did, right?
Oh, okay. I didn't realize he would. I know he was Titans for a minute.
Hainsworth was.
But yeah. Anyway. Or you think Will Fork maybe?
No, Will Fork they paid.
They paid Will Fork. Okay.
Hainsworth,
sorry,
right?
Continue with your point. Yeah.
I think it's Hainsworth. Somebody, 877-353-0700, correct me if I'm wrong. But it was like, you're talking about a top 5 defensive lineman, and they were just like, okay, go. Get your money elsewhere. Kyle Van Noy. When Kyle Van Noy played his way into deserving a huge payday, the Patriots.
Big part of 2 Super Bowl teams with the Pats.
The Patriots were just like, no. You know how difficult it's got to be to look somebody like Kyle Van Noy, who was a huge part of your Super Bowl victories, in the face and be like, that's not what we do here.
Yeah.
We do not give you fat paydays. Unless your name is Tom Brady, you are not irreplaceable.
Right, and even Tom had the foresight to say, I'm not going to take near as big a payday as I deserve because I want us to have the flexibility to re-sign guys and bring in more talent around me. So even Tom, who could have said, pay me or I walk, never did that.
And look, that's not how it's happening. Like the reward isn't there anymore for the Patriots. They're not. Yeah. They're not the model franchise right now in the NFL. That's the Chiefs.
Completely different coach. Vrabel played there. Maybe he continues that same team building philosophy or advocates for that as the head coach, but no guarantee that he does. Yeah.
But I want all of you out there to conduct the exercise that I conducted last night, and I want you to just go position by position and type into your Google search bar highest paid and then fill in the position in the NFL. Highest paid quarterback in the NFL. The San Francisco 49ers now have a guy in the top 10. highest paid running back in the NFL. There are very few teams that when you type in every single position, their guy shows up in the top 5. And the San Francisco 49ers have that right now. So what does that mean? Like, it's sexy when you're looking at those lists, when you're doing that search. But what it means is that your second highest paid linebacker is a guy who's making like $3 million a year. It means that you're not the best versions of San Francisco 49er football always had a dynamic duo of linebackers. Fred Warner has benefited from that for the majority of his career as well. You can't pay that anymore. They've made the choices, not with just Fred Warner, but with Bosa, with Diamador Lenore, with some of these guys. They've just said, you know what? We're going to pay our top guys and hope that they stay healthy. And
also, OC, isn't it also a bet on the front office and scouting team to draft well too, to guys that you don't have to pay very much hitting just about every year, so that you can have that duo without having to pay for it?
So when you look at the players that didn't stay with the University of Utah this offseason, and really the pain points were Keanu Tanuvasa and Cam Calhoun, right?
Yeah.
When you look at those guys and you had to let them walk, that's something that you're not able to engage in every bidding war. And you just have to realize that if, let's say, the decision was made elsewhere or a different decision was made and Utah was just like, you know what, whatever it costs to pay Tanuvasa to stay, we're going to pay that. It comes out of your roster somewhere else. You're the little boy with his fingers in the dam trying to stop the water. It's just like, okay, we plugged that hole. Tanuvasa is now not leaving. And then Smith Snowden's like, well, do you have money for me too? And they're just like, we did, but we gave it to him. Well, then I really have to seriously consider these phone calls. So it's a reality for Utah in a way that it's become a reality for the San Francisco 49ers. Like, I think the Super Bowl window for my favorite team has closed, even though I just gave you the names of, like, future Hall of Famers, basically. Trent Williams is a first-ballot Hall of Famer. Christian McCaffrey is going to be a Hall of Famer. Fred Warner is going to be a Hall of Famer. George Kittle is going to be a Hall of Famer. Bosa has a shot to be a Hall of Famer. These guys are, like, among the best of the best of the best of the best in the NFL. And they've just collected these fine specimens, hoping, it seems, that you can get them all healthy and that people will ignore that a lot of them are rounding into the wrong side of 30s. And you're like, I guess this is going to work for one more year. And Brock Purdy, will see how it plays out. But, man, it is a tough, tough thing when you're dealing with, in the NFL, a real salary cap, and with Utah football and BYU football to some extent and Arizona State football with a salary cap.
The payroll gap.
It's a different deal. Texas doesn't have to make the same kind of decisions, but man, it's like you have to hit on the guys that you decide to pay. And San Francisco didn't feel like they had a lot of options. They better have hit on these guys. And when I say hit, we know that they're talented, but they got to be healthy. And in Bosa's case, he hasn't been productive even when he's healthy.
Yeah, he's definitely plateaued since his great first couple of seasons.
And guess what? When you look at, highest paid linebackers, boom, Fred Warner's there. Wow, Niners are paying a lot of money for their linebackers, which means guess where they don't have a lot of money? Defensive backs. That matters. They don't have a whole lot of money. There's a lot of money invested in Nick Bosa. Have you seen what they've done with their interior defensive tackles as of late? They let them go. They let those guys walk. And what are they doing? Like you said, they're drafting to try to backfill. Maybe that's a position you can do that at. But, man, roster construction is so fascinating and such a delicate, difficult balance when you're dealing with finite funds. That's what Utah's dealing with. That's what every NFL team is dealing with. But I'm just highlighting my favorite one because there's a lot of local interest. And obviously, Fred Warner, congratulations to him. Unbelievable. He deserves that contract. There's no other alternative for that contract. The Kittle one, there's an alternative. You can be the Patriots, and you can say, thank you for your service. We love you. That was amazing. Someday, we hope you'll be inducted to the Hall of Fame as a San Francisco 49er, but we ain't paying you $19.1 million a year, dog. You're not worth that anymore. Bill Belichick made that decision with how many guys, James?
So many.
And in the case of Kyle Van Noy, he was like, go get your money. Go get your big signing bonus from Miami. We'll see you on the other side.
I was even thinking of going back to Willie McGinnis. He finished his career with the Browns, right? Because Romeo Crennel, the great defensive coordinator of that first part of the Patriots dynasty, got the Browns job. And Belichick and the Patriots are like, thanks, but we're not paying you anymore. And so he went to Cleveland, followed his D coordinator to Cleveland. So even all the way back then, 20-plus years ago, they were doing this.
The Ravens have done this with a lot of guys. They did it with Paul Kruger, who played incredibly well in a contract year, and they're just like, all right, man, we love you. Go get money from the Browns. We're not giving it to you. It's a cold world, but that's just how it is. Anyway, we've got to take a break. Gordy Chiesa is going to join us on the other side. 877-353-0700. Give me your thoughts right here on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Shout out to Texter 7535. Richard Seymour is who I was thinking of, the Big D tackle, not Albert Hainsworth. Thank you, 7535. Time to talk a little NBA playoffs, Eastern and Western Conference Finals on deck. I have some polls up at Real OC Sports for you to answer. Who do you think is going to win the Eastern Conference? Who do you think is going to win the Western Conference? Right now, Thunder with 58% of the vote, and Knicks Pacers is split right down the middle. 50.8% say Knicks, 49.2% say Pacers. At Real OC Sports to participate in those polls as we welcome Gordy Chiesa in again. Gordy, how are you?
Oh, see, I'm doing fine. Thank you.
So we talked about this a little bit last week. When these things got set, there's a unique dynamic here. 3 of the 4 franchises remaining have not won an NBA championship. They have not hoisted the trophy. The Knicks obviously haven't done so in quite some time. But for the Thunder, the Timberwolves, the Pacers, they're trying to do it for the very first time. How does that change the way that these teams approach these Eastern and Western Conference Finals series?
Oh, it's destiny. They think that they're going to finally win one, and their franchise will be rewarded for all their hard work. Now, however, let's go with the Knickerbockers and the Pacers. Is that last year the Pacers knocked the Knicks out in that Game 7 in the Garden. So it's a rematch of 4 versus 3, and so it should be an unbelievable series. And the T-Wolves versus the Thunder, and I'll call the T-Wolves Utah Jazz alumni because there's 4 guys from the Jazz that play for the T-Wolves versus the number 1 seed, the Thunder, that they're going to try to win the championship, the Thunder. So the games are really outrageous. And add to that, OC, is that this will be the 7th straight year of a new champion. So the Celtics are out right now. And so for the last 7 years, the defending NBA champion didn't advance past the second round, which means the conference semifinals. So that's how hard it is to get to the championship level. So one of these 4 teams are going to be rewarded for their efforts.
Rest or rust, Gordy. There's teams that have been on the shelf for like a week waiting to see how the other series would play out. And, sometimes that can affect getting back into it. I know it kind of should even out over a 7-game series, but do you like to be the rested team or the team that is just coming straight off another series?
The team is playing right off another series. So that'd be the Thunder, very much, because you're hardened over it. It's in the back of your mind. You just played an incredible series, the Thunder, against the Nuggets. You win 4 games to 3. So the Thunder right now 8-3 in the playoffs, which is hardened, and the T-Wolves have been off for a long time. They're 8-2. Eventually they'll catch up. Eventually, but Game 1 at home, I look for the Thunder to really be hardened over it and to play. And the Knickerbockers also with the Pacers. It's the exact same thing where you want to be. The Knicks are 8-4 in the playoffs. They won both series 4 games to 2, 4 games to 2 over the Pistons and the Celtics. Indiana has been a cruise so far. Bucks 4-1, Cavs 4-1. They're up 8-2. In playoff basketball, it's better to have adversity, like almost every game, and that makes it so much more urgency as far as the group. So I'd lean towards the team that's just come off a tough series.
Okay, bear with me here, Gordy, because we know who the stars are on these teams, right? The Thunder's got SGA, and Timberwolves got Ant-Man, and Halliburton, and Brunson. But give me the second most important player in these individual series for each team. Let's start with the Thunder. Who's the second most important guy against the Timberwolves for this OKC team?
Lou Dort.
Wow.
Versus Anthony Edwards. So Edwards is an unbelievable, incredible player that's scoring the ball, and he's a tremendous all-around player. However, Lou Dort's going to try to slow him down. And so he's the second most valuable because if he does, then the chances of the T-Wolves winning are dramatically lower. And the second person would be Jalen Williams versus Jaden McDaniels. So again, can Lou Dort slow down Anthony Edwards, and can Jalen Williams outplay dramatically Jaden McDaniels? So it's those guys on perimeter who can decide so much, because both teams play switch defense, meaning what? They go out there and they defensively they'll rotate 1 through 5, even though it's a mismatch on the boards. They're willing to do that. So I would lean towards both those guys.
A lot of people are going to be watching the Timberwolves in this series, and there's an added interest with Rudy Gobert. I think there's a good portion of this Jazz fan base that still have a certain amount of affection for the Stifle Tower. Are the Thunder a good or bad matchup for him?
A good matchup, yeah, very much. And Rudy Gobert's got a winning game. Take away him, so what happens with Rudy Gobert type players is they look mechanical when they have the ball in the mid block, where they're not really fluid. So everything they do is based on that visualization of them having a hard time scoring. But Rudy's going to have a good matchup where he's going to he'll be challenged at the rim, and that he's going to be able to rebound the ball. And also is that he's really a willing screener. So a big part of his game is he frees up Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle as far as either pick and roll, or they make him have to play switch defense, and Rudy rolls to the basket on a mismatch and gets some stickbacks. So he's got value.
Do you think he's going to have any big offensive games in this series like he did in the last one?
Well, he's a recipient scorer. So it could happen in a sense where that when he rolls to the basket, it's a mismatch. I mentioned a second ago, but also is that he's an underrated floor runner. So Rudy hustles. I mean, it sounds so weird saying it. And so does Walker Kessler of the Jazz. So usually speaking, if your big guys run the floor, that's what I call unknown running. Unknown run is the expression we use all the time where, do I really want to run down the floor that I'm not sure the ball's going to come to me? But Rudy Gobert and Walker Kessler type people, they're floor runners, and they're willing to have the unknown factor to get a stick back or make the recovery defensive players have to guard them, and that opens up the three-point line. When the bigs run the floor, it opens the three-point line is open now because the back line of defense has to take you on and get tangled up, and that allows the three-point shooters to come down and free flow for shots. It's vastly underrated. The better teams do it all the time.
Gordy Chiesa, my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 792.1 FM. We are your home of the NBA playoffs. And, of course, you've got series tonight, and Game 1 of Thunder Timberwolves tonight, 6:30 on ESPN. Game 1 of Pacers Knicks on TNT tomorrow night at 6. Gordy, most of us have watched Knicks basketball at some point, but I've never been to a Knicks game in person. I was a fan of the Knicks when in the Patrick Ewing days and John Starks days and Charles Oakley days, but what would a return to glory for the Knicks mean for the city of New York and for the NBA?
For the NBA, it would be absolutely incredible because New York and LA, that they want those teams to be good. So it would help them, the league, as far as the TV partners. For the fans, tough. I mean, just think about the fans in New York. Is football, the Jets, yikes. The Giants, yikes. The Mets have the highest paid payroll in baseball, and the Yankees, they spend less, but they're judged that way as far as big spenders. And so the Knicks, the last time Knicks won a championship was 1973, which is 52 years ago, with a whole bunch of promising players over that during that time and tremendous talent, but they just couldn't get it done. So now they have this team where they really are a unit. So Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, OG Anunoby, and Karl Anthony Towns, they play as a team. Then off the bench, Mitchell Robinson, Miles McBride, and Cam Payne, they give them unbelievable as far as energy. So the Knicks are really an old-fashioned team that the pieces do fit. And then Tom Thibodeau, they have a coach that's defensive-minded. And then that's what makes them so good. Now, the Pacers aren't going to cooperate. They also are defensive-minded, and they've done a good job with their roster also. So the matchup's going to be, as far as a key matchup, besides, Jalen Brunson and Tyrese Halliburton, it's going to be Josh Hart, who's an excellent rebounder, hustle player, resonant as far as in the lane, versus Aaron Nesmith, who's also a good rebounder, a tiny three-point shooter. And the second best matchup is going to be former teammates of the Raptors, OG Anunoby versus Pascal Siakam. So those guys played a huge part in 2019 as far as the Raptors being NBA champions. Let's fast forward it 6 years later. They're going to guard each other most times in the game to try to advance to the NBA Finals.
When we look at this series, this Eastern Conference series, and the history between these two franchises, Reggie Miller is going to be on the analysis, right? They're going to have Reggie in the building, and like a lot of the guys, it's such a young league. A lot of the guys in the NBA, I don't know if they've even watched those old series. I mean, if you're a coach, do you bring that up? If you're a coach, do you educate them on the history, or do you just let them focus on the matchup in front of them?
You let them focus on the matchup in front of them. Most of these guys, so Reggie Miller, when he had that incredible run, was 1994 when Spike Lee, who we all love Spike Lee, sitting up front row, was taunting Reggie, and Reggie suddenly had those killer games versus a very strong Knick team. Most of those guys, all the guys weren't even born yet. So truly, I mean, so if you're born in 2000, that means you're 25 years young right now. And so the coaches wouldn't bring it up. The fans do, of course, and the media does, but the players aren't worried like that. They're just worrying about themselves if they can play well, and hopefully they can advance and get some chance to be on global television to showcase their skills. There's nothing like the playoffs. Your legacy will be known, or you're going to be exposed as far as what you can't do. Usually speaking, the stars really make plays, but the bench players are major contributors. Don't you get the feeling that usually when Indiana wins a playoff series, T.J. McConnell's always involved in the middle of the fray, and so is Obi Toppin, and now they added their sidekick, Benedict Mathurin. So the Pacers have improved dramatically because of their bench play, and all three of those guys I mentioned will be huge in the Garden.
A couple years ago, Jalen Brunson made headlines because he took less than max money, saying he wanted to leave something on the table so the team could surround him with talent and they could compete for a championship. Is he going to get credit for that if it translates to a championship? Is that decision by him a part of why the Knicks are where they're at?
Yes, very much. The answer is yes. Yeah, he'll be rewarded with a championship because by him taking slightly less market value, as a matter of fact, he really delayed it. That's what he did. They were able to sign Mikal Bridges, his former Villanova teammate, from the Nets, and that really helped them. And they were able to get eventually Karl Anthony Towns. It's the money being delayed somewhat, and that enables a team to navigate the salary cap and now the luxury tax, and even now they call it the first apron. So he did it. Now he's being paid very handily, but when he did that, it gave a chance to get other good players. So here's his contract right now. Let's put it in context. Next year this is Brunson. He makes $34.9 million, 26.27, 37.7, 27.28, 40.5 million, and 28.29, 48.3 million. However, if he didn't do that, he'd be making roughly between 44 to 52 million on average. So he took a slight delayed pay to go 10 steps forward.
All right, Gordy, before I let you go, what's your list today?
All right, my list today, how about those Nuggets? Nuggets, I love those guys, how they competed. And so Game 7. So my list today is the all-time greatest Game 7 as far as players, how many times they've been in it, and I'll give it just a 2-3 things historically. Game 7s, what makes it so dramatic is that it tests the nerves of a player, the ability to perform at the highest level. So when you're playing Game 7, it's a whole bunch of anxiety. Here we go. These players now have all played in 9 Game 7s in their career of all time. Elgin Baylor, 9 Game 7s. His record is 3-6. Will Chamberlain, 9 Game 7s. His record is 4-5. Jerry West, 9 Game 7s. His record is 4-5. Joe Johnson, former Jazzman, record is 5-4. Wes Unseld Sr., his record is 6-3. Danny Ainge of the Celtics and also now the Utah Jazz, his record is 6-3. Robert Parrish, record is 6-3. Robert Horry, 9 Game 7s, his record is 7-2. Dennis Johnson, 9 Game 7s, his record is 7-2. And Sam Jones, 9 Game 7s, his record is 9-0. The following 3 players have been in 10 Game 7s in their career. Al Horford, tremendous player, his record is 6-3. Paul Pierce, Hall of Famer, his record is 5-5. Bill Russell was in 10 Game 7s. His record is 10-0. The number 1 player in the most Game 7s in NBA history is Ray Allen with 11. His record is 7-4. So that's my list today. Let's just go quickly about some of the historical points of it. Bill Russell's 10-0. In Game 7s, Bill Russell averaged 18.6 points per game and 29.3 rebounds in Game 7s.
Wow.
Incredible. Jerry West averaged 30.9 points per game in Game 7s. Will Chamberlain averaged 24 points per game and 27 rebounds.
What?
27 rebounds in Game 7s. And the last one is Elgin Baylor averaged 29.2 points per game and 13.4 rebounds. Jazz basketball. The most Game 7s are John Stockton and Karl Malone. They played in 3 all time. Their record is 1-2 in those games. I had the privilege also to coach in 2 Game 7s where the record was we won 1 and we lost 1. Back in 1994, the Jazz beat the Nuggets in a Game 7 to move on. And in 1996, the Jazz lost in Seattle to get to the NBA Finals in 7 games on June 2nd, 1996. So Game 7s, there's nothing like it. I feel for Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray because it's incredible how hard it is to get there and you want to try to advance. Thus, that's my list today of the all-time greatest performers of Game 7 history.
Love it, Gordy. Enjoy Game 1 tonight. We'll talk with you on Thursday.
Thanks. Peace out. Stay well.
Gordy Chiesa, our resident NBA guru. Big fan of Gordy. Always brings us knowledge bombs. All right, it's going to be a real quick hot lunch next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. All right, you've heard me talking about it on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM right here on the Sean O'Connell Show. The Steel Vault Med Spa right in the middle of the valley in the heart of Holiday, Utah. Comprehensive treatment. They can do anything you need. You need hormone treatments to try to bring that libido back, give you a little bit more energy, help with some weight loss. They've got you covered there. Maybe it's something just a little bit more on the cosmetic side, trying to get rid of the wrinkles, the crow's feet. Maybe you're trying to restore some of that hair loss. The hairline is creeping back a little bit. The bottom line is the Steel Vault can help out with all of these things. If it's not about how you look, you just want to feel better, they've got you covered there too. Vitamin, IV infusions, all of the stuff that you need to look and feel your best. They'll help you sleep better. They'll help make your workouts better. They'll help your relationship with your significant other get better. Steel Vault has treatments for just about anything that ails you as a gentleman or as a lady out there. We don't like asking for help oftentimes as guys, especially with some of these delicate hormone things, libido stuff in particular. Go talk to the Steel Vault. Tell them Mosi sent you. I promise you'll be happy that you did. Schedule your visit right now, 801-877-9976, or book your first consultation online at steelvault.com and click that big Book Now button. Tell them OC sent you at Steel Vault and steelvault.com. All right, we talked about this a little bit last week. It's coming up quick. June 17th, Rising Stars. June 18th, College Prospects. The all-poly camps are in Sandy at Lone Peak Park. Registration is open right now, allpolysports.com. Ale Mateo, the brains behind the operation, joins us again here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Welcome, Ale. How are you?
Oh, doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you stopping by one more time here to talk about what you guys have going on. Look, it's so funny because we talked last week, and then one of my friends, longtime friend of mine, was texting me and was like, hey, my son, 15 years old, and he's hit this growth spurt, 6'5", 275 pounds. I said, whoa. You have got to get this kid into a good situation football-wise, because that means a free education. If you're built like that, you're just a few looks away from getting your college taken care of, maybe a nice little nest egg if you got the ability. But you got to get in front of the right people, Alema, for those things to happen. This is a camp where you're getting in front of the right people, is it not?
Absolutely. We're going to have about 30 different colleges on site, a bunch of coaches coaching kids, and that's where, our camp separates it from everybody else. You got a lot of mega camps going on right now where there's going to be over 1,000 kids there and a bunch of colleges. The sad thing is the colleges, they can't touch them. They can't coach them. At our camp, they're going to be able to get their hands on, coach them up, and we encourage our guys when they come, you got to coach them at college speed. So they're going to identify the kids who can make that jump right off the bat.
And it's not just players who have aspirations to play at the next level. Oh, this All Poly Sports, this is a great place to get that exposure. But if you're just a parent of a child, or you're just an athlete who wants to have a better year in this upcoming football season, wants to get coached up, wants to learn a little bit of better technique, wants to see how you stack up against some elite competition or just your age group, you're going to get coached up at this camp. That's one of the things, you talk about those mega camps. It's so hard to stand out. It's so hard to get the individual attention. It's so hard to actually get coached. Yes, they'll blow the whistle and have you run through the drills, but how much technique are they really coaching at your camps, Alema? They're getting real instruction.
Absolutely. These guys are coaching up the same way they're coaching their players up on their campus. So they're getting the same lingo, the same drills. I mean, there's no other place you can do this outside of going to another college camp to get this kind of instruction. Like I said, a lot of these places where you go, you have these mega camps. There are a bunch of guys there, running drills for the coaches. But I mean, a coach can't figure out what this kid's demeanor is like. How does he handle tough coaching? Does he actually articulate what I'm saying? So we give these guys a real taste of what it's like to be coached up at a high level. And in return, right, and we've noticed this, and it doesn't matter, right, kids who come in and they put in the time and effort to commit to the way we do things, they get better. they get better. They walk away better. And we've had countless stories of guys that, they go back to their schools. The competition maybe wasn't as strong, and their confidence seems to grow. So we're confident that it doesn't matter, whether you're a college prospect or not. If you have the ability and the want to get better, this is the camp for you.
allpolysports.com. Registration is open right now. This is full football. This is fully padded helmet, shoulder pads. This is the real deal, right, Alema?
Absolutely. You're going to go through an entire day of learning a playbook, competing against top competition, and getting coached hard.
allpolysports.com to register. Rising Stars, June 17th. That's grades 6 through 8. College Prospects Camp is on June 18th. Grades 9 and up. 9th grade and up from there. Get your kid out there in front of college coaches. Get them coached up the right way. Get them competing with other athletes who are like-minded. Have some fun while doing it. allpolysports.com. Alema, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Alema Teo, the man behind the camps, and I think he said, 26 years is how long they've been doing this thing? Last time we talked. Get your kids in there. The regular registration fee goes through the end of the month. After that, you get the late registration fee. It's going to cost just a little bit more. You can even do walk-ups on the day down there in Sandy at Lone Peak Park, but that's going to cost you more. So get the helmet, get the shoulder pads, get the pants, the knee pads, the cleats, everything. Get the mouthpiece. Get the kids out there. Let them participate in some high-level football before the summer starts and before the season approaches. allpolysports.com. All right, I put the poll questions out like I said. I'll give you some updates on the responses so far. The NFL is meeting on some decisions. One of the decisions that they're trying to make is, do we allow NFL players to participate in the 2028 Olympics as part of the flag football competition? Let's get into this in 3 minutes. Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Welcome to hour number 2, Sean O'Connell Show. Brought to you by Mountainland Supply. Visit mountainlandsupply.com or go to any of their physical locations, great showrooms, any of your home improvement projects. Check out mountainlandsupply.com. We've got our Festival of Teas continuing. Utah Golf Association, Mountain America Credit Union hooking you up with golf every show, every day. We'll be giving away our golf in topical trivia coming up in an hour and 33 minutes. See what I did there? That was very specific.
Yeah.
Almost certainly I will not hit that timestamp, but that's
If
just the way we do
If you
things.
tune in an hour and 33 minutes, stay tuned in because it'll be probably a couple minutes after.
It'll probably be after that.
Probably
for
a
the
little
most
few
part.
minutes after
Okay,
that, but
it's
it'll be
just that-
around that time.
Yeah, but we'll keep it in that neighborhood.
If you're, maybe if you can't stay in your car for a couple minutes longer, pull us up on the app so you can listen in. There you go.
There you go. ESPN 700 app. You can tell your smart speaker to play ESPN 700. We're on demand, and we're wherever you get your podcasts. All right. NFL players in flag football. James Peterson, what do you think?
I think it's kind of a no-brainer for the NFL to want to give their players a chance to play in the Olympics. I mean, NFL players, so many of them, I believe it was on the Manning cast, even Peyton Manning and Eli were, I believe, interviewing Sue Bird, I want to say, or maybe it was Diana Taurasi, and they talked about they were saying, we have 4 Super Bowl rings, but you have more Olympic gold medals than we have Super Bowl rings, and we're extremely jealous of that. So it would be, I've heard a lot of people say, oh, the injury risk, whatever, this and that, but NFL players are the only players who play high-level professional sports in the world who are not, I shouldn't say only, but very among the few who are not able to play in the Olympics. So I think it's only right that the NFL allow them to.
Here's the thing. I'm really torn on this because flag football is right now being developed as a separate sport, but it's a lot of the investment that is being used to develop flag football comes from the NFL because the NFL decided, 10 years ago, hey, we need to make sure that the next generation of young kids is still interested in football, even if they're not playing tackle football because parents are so worried about concussions and things like that. So they started pouring money and attention and resources and time into flag football, getting girls' flag football leagues going. The NFL has decided they're going to back a professional flag football league, which is absolutely insane to me that they've decided they want to be involved in backing that instead of backing a spring football league where you could actually be developing talent that then transitions to the NFL. That makes zero sense to me. But, they're getting their hands on the flag football thing. If you win a gold medal in flag football with NFL players on your team, that's like being the United States and winning a hot dog eating contest.
Yeah.
It's just like,
it's definitely Dream Team 92.
except you saw the rule proposals, right? It won't be the dream team.
Well, right, I know, but it's the same kind of thing where it's like, well, you stack the deck.
Yeah. And if you're by the way, the proposal for LA 2028 flag football as an Olympic sport, they're going to have 6 nations participating in the field. Not enough. All right.
Yeah. No.
First of all, those nations have yet to be identified. Is it just Team USA, Canada? Who else is playing flag football? I mean, we know that you could go to Tonga and Samoa and you could get some great football players. Flag football players? I don't know. I don't know who else is playing flag football. Now, the proposal
places like Russia who still want the world to know that they're awesome at everything.
Have they? Has
Maybe
any Russian kid ever played flag football ever?
Yeah, maybe not. But I wouldn't be surprised if they're not. I'd be surprised if they're not motivated to throw their hat in the ring at another new sport.
We'll see how it works.
They won't be
out.
good, but I think
I'm
I
not-
wouldn't be surprised if they're one of the 6.
I'm not going to lie to you. Like I'm generally a football fan. I don't cast any aspersions on flag football if that's your thing and your passion. I don't think flag football needs to be in the Olympics.
No,
I don't think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
There are so
I'm
many
not
other
interested
sports.
in really watching it, to be honest with you. I'm not that interested.
I've seen they did at the Pro Bowl games. They did like a super high level flag football contest where they had like these professional level flag football players, and these guys that are like at the top of these rec leagues, I guess.
Ones that might get replaced by NFL players on the Olympic team.
Also, right now the proposal is, and the one that's expected to pass, is that you're talking about 6 different teams, 1 NFL player per team.
Oh, that's per Olympic team. That's not per. Like I read that wrong. I thought they meant you couldn't have 2 Miami Dolphins.
That's what. Okay, so I read it that way, and then I read it the other way. Here's the latest ESPN article that I just pulled up. All right. Let me find the portion. Okay, so here, by the way, here are some things to protect players from what you were talking about and the NFL and their teams from injuries. All right. This is what the NFLPA is supposed to push forward and hopefully get passed with these NFL meetings. Permission for any player under NFL contract to participate in flag football trials for the Olympics. A limit of 1 player per NFL team on each national team participating.
Okay, so that's
one NFL team participating.
Yeah.
One NFL. So like 1 Kansas City Chief, 1 Miami Dolphin.
You can't have Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce on Team USA.
Okay. A team's designated international player to play for his home country. Okay, I don't know what that really means. A purchase of league-wide insurance policies to provide injury protection for any player injured while participating in an authorized flag football activity related to the Olympics. A salary cap credit for any player who is injured.
Also NHL style.
Formations, injury to Matthew Tkachuk, and the Florida Panthers were just like, we get that salary off the books. You're doing that with this Olympic thing.
I don't hate that.
That's the right thing to do.
In a hard cap league, especially, I think that should be the rule universally. I don't think hockey's a hard cap league. I could be wrong. But NFL certainly is. And in a hard cap league where you have that many injuries, that should already be a rule. If you get guys out for the season, and I think it should be. I don't like the part in hockey where it's like, okay, he's out for the rest of the regular season.
For the rest of the regular season.
You got to be out for. You can't play in the playoffs either. You get that salary wiped off the books, and you can replace that injured player with someone else might be available on the free agent market, or absorb them in a trade if it's before the trade deadline. I love that.
So the league is ready to put some protections in. That would make sense. Inevitably, some team will abuse this and send a guy who they know is already injured to the Olympics.
That's a good point.
And then they'll be like, oh, look, his salary came off the books. Isn't that great for us? Now we could go out there and...
Unintended consequences of I think a good thing.
A schedule that does not unreasonably conflict with NFL players' league and club commitments. Summer Olympics and the NFL off-season program, they kind of overlap, but nothing that's actually consequential to the season.
Well, this will
especially because we're talking about star players are going to be the ones that they put in this thing.
And this will be Summer Olympics is typically last week of July into about mid-August. So you're maybe missing a few days of training camp and some preseason.
And the expectation for Olympic flag football facilities to comply with surface requirements of NFL playing surfaces, minimum standards. That might be the hardest part.
Yeah.
Although NFL players continue, there are some people who are like, it's grass or nothing. And there are a lot of people who, when they get hurt, they're just like, well, it's the turf. The science doesn't say that. A lot of fans have jumped on that bandwagon because they hear their favorite players say, well, I was playing on turf, and the turf is the reason I tore my ACL.
Remember when Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles? Everyone was like, turf, turf, turf. It's like, not necessarily.
So, I mean, look, a fun experiment potentially. The potential is there, because the potential is always there for this to introduce football to the world in a way that makes it more palatable, especially for developing nations. Flag football is a lot easier to put a game together than tackle football.
Absolutely.
You just don't require the same level of equipment, obviously. A belt with flags on it, or you can just tuck scraps of whatever into your waistband to play flag football.
Some toilet paper.
And that's
I don't know.
Look, so maybe this has the similar dream team effect of 1992.
I don't think that it will, OC, because it's not full padded, full contact football, but it probably will help grow the game. You'd think it would. The other thing about this, I don't think that flag football has been implemented in other Olympic Games. Right now it's just LA. They haven't said 2032 games will include flag football.
Right. This is the what they do with every sport. They like, hey, we're going to put surfing in the Olympics. Let's test it out first. They did this with rugby, the rugby sevens.
Yeah.
They said we're going to put this in, and then of course it got adopted, and that's where I want to see the United States grow in terms of Olympic sports. Rugby's a great sport. Rugby sevens has made it more popular in the United States. Does Olympic flag football change the status of flag football in the U.S. when you put NFL players in it? Yeah, maybe. Does it change the status of the game of football internationally if you put flag football in the Olympics? And you brought up some great points. I don't know that it's enough of the similarities are strong enough that people realize, right? If you're tuning in as a casual fan in like Jamaica and you're watching Patrick Mahomes play flag football, are you then just like, oh, sweet, I want to be a real football quarterback? Does your community then just say, this is the best thing I've ever seen, I really want to do this, and now you're getting great athletes, elite speed, growing up in actual football because they play flag football? I mean, I guess that makes the transition easier, especially for skill position guys. If you played flag football your whole life and somebody goes and the NFL scouts you and is just like, hey, this kid is a freakishly good wide receiver. He's got like Britton Covey would be the best flag football player ever.
Get Britton on LA Rams, get Britton on the LA on Team USA in LA Olympics. Let's go.
You know what? Just that sentence coming out of my mouth completely reversed my whole position on whether or not I want flag football in the Olympics. Because Britton Covey is like the guy that I would put on the Team USA flag football team, and he wins an Olympic gold medal. And then he probably comes in studio and lets us touch it.
Absolutely. Totally unselfish reasons. We want Britain to be on the Olympic team and win a gold medal.
What's the coolest trophy or award that you've actually had your hands on, James?
Had my hands on.
You haven't touched the Stanley Cup because you're not allowed.
No. Yeah. I haven't. You know what, OC? I'm kind of lame. I guess none of them come to mind. I will say the closest one, and this is not like crazy high level award or trophy, wasn't able to put my hands on it, but it was in studio here. The LPGA Black Desert Championship trophy was sitting right there across from you on the desk.
Yeah, pick it up.
Was not able to. It's a white glove thing.
The little heft on it. You didn't
white glove thing. I didn't. And Patrick Manning, the managing director down there, was the only one who had gloves, so didn't touch it out of respect. But that's probably the closest I've been to like a professional, a pretty cool professional trophy. It was a cool looking trophy, black, and it had like red, shiny red thing going down the side there. Right. It was a cool, unique looking trophy. But yeah, I haven't been close to that many like really iconic trophies. Now that you say that, What about
Silver
you?
Singlinga came into studio several years ago and passed around his Super Bowl ring, let people
okay.
touch it. Weddle at the post game, one game was in town.
Oh, he brought his ring.
Had his
Okay.
ring, and actually he let me put on the ring, and then he walked away, and I was just like, "You're an idiot." I almost pocketed that
Trust
thing.
you way too much, OC.
I was seriously like, I could run away right now and just keep this thing.
You could take it to Bellison Jewelers, have them make a replica, so you keep the championship ring, and then you give the replica to Weddle. He wouldn't even know.
He probably would have figured it out.
Shout out to Bellison Jewelers.
Clarissa Shields, who's a two-time Olympic boxing gold medalist,
Yeah.
was involved with the PFL, and she carries her Olympic gold medals around in her purse.
It's awesome.
So, like, we were in.
It makes the purse a little heavier, but that's
Yeah.
the move.
We were in Newcastle, England, I think.
You won a gold medal, right? Actually, yes.
Yeah.
Pull it out.
She pulled them both out, and then I was just like, let me see that thing. And she just, like, lets you touch them. I was like, this is the coolest thing in the
so
world.
Cool.
Olympic gold medals.
Plus, she's getting even more swole because just for carrying those around all the time, right?
That's right. The hidden
Part of
benefit.
the workout. No, yeah. What about what trophy or ring or whatever did you get for winning the PFL?
I mean,
World
yeah, I got a
Tournament?
belt.
You got the belt.
I got the
right,
championship
yeah, you got
belt.
the belt.
So I've touched that. I've had that.
Yeah.
I wore that around my waist for like a night.
I had a Little League baseball, Pony League, for those who know.
Oh, hello.
Baseball team that I played right field
Good.
the
It's
last couple innings of every game.
fine. All right.
So
fine.
you know what kind of player I was.
That's okay, James. It's all right. Don't diminish your accomplishment.
13-0 Pony League, so I still got the Little League Championship T-shirt. So
Heck
that maybe that's
right.
the coolest thing I've been around. OC.
You know what I'm gonna? I think I should. I'll bring in my belt so you can
Let's
see that.
do it.
I gotta find it.
Then I actually have
In
a
a
good.
box.
Then I actually have a good story for this.
It's in a box
kind of a
somewhere in the
segment.
basement.
Oh my gosh, gotta hang it up on the wall here, dude.
It's kind of heavy. We'd have to get a. We could hang it up in the wall. Got no objection to that. You know what I want? I want to, because like in the Super Bowl, there's the trophy, and then
Yeah.
everyone gets a ring. I want that to become the norm in the combat sports world,
Yeah,
where you get a championship ring, something you could actually wear, and then for the trophy case, you do the belt or whatever.
or maybe a championship belt, and then like rodeo style, give you
Like
a nice
rodeo belt buckle?
Belt buckle.
James, I know you're saying that facetiously, but that's actually a really cool
No,
idea.
I think the combat sports world might be more on board with that than giving out rings because it's just a smaller version of the big belt that you can wear around.
That would be pretty cool if you just had a belt buckle on, and people are just like, "Oh, is that rodeo?" No, that's a UFC or PFL belt.
Then the next time you're at Utah football practice, you can walk up to Colton Swan and be like, "I got a belt buckle too."
like, what's up? You're not the
What's
only
going
one
on?
with championship belt buckles, pal. I like that. It's a great idea, James. See, we're brainstorming here.
Yeah. If anyone from the PFL is listening,
they did when we did Champs versus Champs. After PFL purchased Bellator, the Bellator champions fought the PFL champions. It didn't end up being straight across like that, but the winners of those fights got a championship belt that actually had a ring embedded in it,
ooh,
and you could take the ring out.
so there's a spot to put to keep the ring in the belt.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah, it was awesome. These belts were incredible, and the rings were super, super cool. And it was a one-off event, so I think there were 4 made, like 4 of them. That's it.
You didn't ask him for one.
No, I did.
Oh, you did. Okay.
I was like, I want one of these.
You're like, I'm a PFL champion.
They're just like, but you didn't. You're done. That was 6 years ago. I was like, but I still want it. And they said no. So, am I happy about that?
No retroactive championship ring for Sean
Can you
O'Connell.
imagine? Okay, that's like if it became the norm, right? You started giving out championship rings for everybody, and then you're like, hey, I won the first season in the PFL. I won the very first one. They're like, no, sorry, no rings. It's like, what? Did they get Super Bowl rings for Super Bowl I? I don't even know. I'm assuming they did.
I think they did because when the game was in Vegas 2 years ago, the Sphere showed they had a projection of every Super Bowl ring. So
Yeah.
I think they did. They just were they
Green Bay
looked more
Packers
like a
received-
class ring than a Super Bowl ring.
That's exactly what it looked like. The Green Bay Packers received the first Super Bowl rings after winning Super Bowl I in 1966. The rings were designed by Packers coach Vince Lombardi, along with Willie Davis and Bob Skoronski. They featured a 1-carat diamond set in a globe of white gold.
Yeah.
It is, 1-carat diamond back in the day? Not bad.
Yeah.
Nice little ring.
Some class rings now, especially some older ones, pretty cool looking. So I imagine a Super Bowl ring that looked more like a class ring, still pretty cool.
What was the last Super Bowl we had? Super Bowl 58? Is that right?
Yeah, 58 sounds right. Either 58 or 59.
It would have been 59. 58 was the
Was that the Vegas
Chiefs.
one?
Let's see here. 10-carat, 219 diamonds, 17 green sapphires for the Super Bowl 59 champions. Okay, so Super Bowl I, you get a diamond.
Oh, diamond.
Super Bowl 59, you get 219 and 17 sapphires on top of it because you're the Eagles. Ostentatious. All right, Bees baseball season is underway. They've got a special thing happening. A new team store is opening at the ballpark at America First Square. Ty Wardle, the Bees GM, is going to join us next. We'll talk about that and the developments in the Bees world. Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show. We'll get into some Stanley Cup Eastern Conference final tonight. That's coming up in about 10 minutes here on the show. Right now, we're joined by Ty Wardle, Bees general manager, ahead of the new team store opening at the ballpark at America First Square out there in Daybreak. Ty Wardle, welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show. How are you?
Good. Thanks, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Did you ever think that Bees general manager would be on the business card?
I can't say that I did, but it's been fun. I mean, all the things that we're working on in the marketplace within baseball and opening a new ballpark at the ballpark at America First Square and stuff like this team store grand opening tonight. It's fun. Kind of have to pinch myself. I think a lot of people want to work in sports, and so it's fun to be a part of something so cool.
When you were working for Greg Miller Toyota back in the day, was that always on the radar for you? That obviously the Larry H. Miller Company, the Miller family, they're involved in so many different initiatives and so many different businesses, and as part of that family, as someone who's working in that family of companies, was that always something on your radar that you wanted to move to the sports side?
No, I don't think I've ever been asked that before, referencing the Greg Miller Toyota side of my automotive days in that same vein. But no, it wasn't, honestly. The Larry H. Miller dealership brand was so prominent in the marketplace. I think that was kind of the opportunities that were out there for growth as far as career growth goes and different things within the industry. But, I mean, obviously at that time, we owned the Utah Jazz. We owned a lot of different sports properties, Tour of Utah. Megaplex was a part of that entertainment system as well. So it was always really appealing, but never really was part of the plan. But things changed back in 2017 when I jumped over to be a part of the Jazz organization and help out with their premium ticketing and ticketing for that venue. And it's been fun ever since, and we're riding the wave of sports. It's a lot of fun to be in sports.
Well, I hope you'll forgive me staying on this, but the reason I'm doing it is because you talk to people all the time. I'm fortunate enough to work in sports talk radio. It's a dream job for me. And, you talk to people, and it's like I don't have a real job. I get paid to watch sports. I get paid to talk about sports. That's what other people are doing as hobbies. That's what other people are doing in their off time. And so many people are just like, how'd you get into that? And the thought process is often like, well, if I didn't go to school for something like that, there's no chance. If I didn't identify in my teens or 20s that I wanted to be in the sports world, then I'm not going to end up in the sports world. And I'm evidence of the opposite, and so are you.
Yeah, you're spot on. There's so many different things within the sports system that is just a part of just general enterprise and business opportunities. And so that's ticketing, that's partnerships, that's events, that's game operations. So there's a lot of different cool things to be a part of sports in general. And so fortunately for me and you, it's a part of our daily lives, and it's a ton of fun. It's exciting. It's adaptive. It changes. We react to fan experiences and try to do things to make things better and make things more memorable for the people that engage with our brands within the Bees and within Megaplex, and now with Real Salt Lake and us owning that team. So it's constant. There's ups and downs as people experience and people know. Only one team wins a championship every year, so their other 29 fail. But that's what's fun. That's a part of it, to kind of just continue to iterate and get better and make it very memorable for the fans that engage with their brands. It's a lot of fun.
Ty, when do we get to add Salt Lake Major League Baseball franchise to another property that we can all be excited about?
Yeah, the sooner the better. We're doing everything we can with Major League Baseball to make sure that we are kind of a beacon in the West for a Major League venue. So we've done everything we can as far as statewide support, the ownership, the land acquisition, working hard just to make sure that we're a viable and a really good option in the West. And when that time comes with expansion with Major League Baseball, when they trigger that hopefully we've made Salt Lake City and Utah feel like it's a no-brainer that baseball should live there. So no timeline, no date attached to that at all, but we are doing and working on everything we can to make that happen.
Bees GM Ty Wardle, my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show right now. They've got a ribbon cutting going on. We'll get to that here in just a second. I have to be fully transparent and honest with you, okay? I was among those who were resistant to the idea of moving out to Daybreak. I live in the Avenues selfishly. I was like, no, man, Smith's Ballpark's the greatest place on earth. It's 10 minutes from my house. That view of the Wasatch Mountains out past the batter's eye. You can't get any better than that. And then I saw the photos of the renderings, and I was just like, oh, man, this ballpark at America First is pretty cool looking too.
Yeah.
And you guys really knocked it. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this in a baseball conversation. You really knocked it out of the park with this new place. What's it been like with the fan response, with the community reaction to a new venue for the Bees?
Yeah, it's been very well received. And you said renderings. We need to get you out to the ballpark so you can see it in person instead of speaking to renderings. But, I mean, the view is unbelievable, like you mentioned. That was one thing that was very kind of sacred to the old ballpark, and we wanted to make sure that that stayed. It had something as majestic in the new ballpark, and I think we captured that from everyone we've heard from and has experienced it out there. And so, like, we know that there's challenges, and when you relocate to a different part of the state, that some of those challenges and the feedback will come from the people that were just used to it in the venue where it was for a long time. So we're working through some of that. I mean, we're actively on phone calls with those people that are hesitant to experience out there with us, but doing everything we can to make sure that we have all fans part of the experience out there. I just came from a meeting where they're talking about, I mean, just a ton of different ticketing packages. I mean, we'll have tickets that start at $10. If you go to slbs.com or call just 801-325-BEES, and trying to keep the price point where it's supposed to be so everyone can experience it and enjoy it. But for sure, there's some things that we can't work around as far as like location and travel time for some of the residents. But we're doing everything we can to make it a magnet and attract people from all over Utah County, Salt Lake County, and even Davis County to come down and enjoy a baseball game. And even out of state, we have a great out of state footprint for Bees baseball, kind of in the western U.S. Gap between Colorado, obviously above Arizona, and then parts of Idaho, Wyoming, Montana come down to enjoy Bees baseball games. So we want to make sure it's unforgettable that for anyone that comes to a baseball game with us.
Well, special event happening today, 4:45, 5 o'clock this afternoon. The ribbon cutting on the new team store. Tell me what fans should expect.
Yeah, our old team store at the ballpark was only about 800 feet, and so 800 square feet, I should say. So this new team store is 2,200 square feet, so almost quadruple the size of, or triple the size of the old one. And so you can only imagine the huge hat wall that we've built, the new brand that we've unveiled this year with just some of our additional marks. And all the different apparel that we have to have in that store to fill 2,200 square feet of space. And so we're really excited to kind of get that part of our ballpark open and kind of that final piece working through construction. And so fans have been excited for it. So it'll be a fun day to kind of open that to the general public and have it be open even on non-game days. And that wasn't the case with our old team store. You had to come to a baseball game to enjoy that. So this will be open all year round as part of all the other events that happen out there at the ballpark in America First Square. So exciting for fans and non-fans to kind of wander in and see what we have.
Again, that's today at 5 p.m. It is a free community event. Just grab the kids, get them out there, check out the new team store. The grand opening is today. The ribbon cutting will happen. Ty, do me a favor, set aside an Abejas. I love the Abejas version of the Bees gear. I'll do a snapback because you never know. Just set one aside for me. I'll come out and get it, all right?
Okay, we have your name on it. Thanks for having me.
You're the man. Appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, all right. Talk soon.
Ty Wardle, Bees GM, kind enough to join us talking about the new team store grand opening at the ballpark at America First Square. What a wild address. Did you see the address on this thing? 11111. 5 ones. That's the address. 11111 South Ballpark Drive in South Jordan. Go check it out. Grand opening.
Yeah, hard to forget that address.
Of the Salt Lake Bees team store. All right.
What, 1,400 square feet bigger than the one at Smith's Ballpark?
Like
so
size.
That'll be a lot of fun to go walk through and look at some new Bees gear.
I like that Ty talked about the hat wall because the hat wall is that's kind of the feature at a lot of these team stores now. They've got so many great options.
And every one of the stores in the mall They have the big hat wall. Yeah.
Minor league baseball does a better job than Major League Baseball with the hat collections. They just do. They got like the Copa ones. It's every alternative you could possibly find. Really great stuff. So check it out. That's 5 o'clock, free event. They're going to have hot dogs and all that. Go take the kids out there. All right, James Peterson made a bold prediction to me regarding the Stanley Cup playoffs while we were, getting ready for the show this morning. Who's your Stanley Cup favorite? We'll get to that next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. All right, in the 1 o'clock hour, Andy Larson's going to join us. J.B. Long as well, formerly the Pac-12 Network with the Rams. That J.B. Long. Looking forward to that conversation. James, before the show started today, you came in, you're like, you know what, I think Florida's going to win it all. I was like, what? Are you
I think they're going to repeat.
I thought you were you said, I think Florida's going to repeat, and I thought you were referencing there was big transfer news in college basketball.
Oh.
The Florida Gators got a big-time transfer, and I was just like, wow, that's deep cuts. You're going college basketball?
I can't say I'm quite that dialed into college basketball to be able to give you a prediction. May's not even done yet on who will win it all. But Florida Panthers, I think, are going to repeat as Stanley Cup champions, OC.
They are a nasty physical team. They've got the goal scoring. They've got playoff Bob reappearing, Bobrovsky. And look, you've heard me say it probably 10 times on the show. Just tune in and watch the difference when a goalie heats up, a goaltender in NHL hockey just starts getting into this groove. They're into the flow state. They do things. They contort themselves in ways, and they react to shots and then to rebounds on those shots in ways that are borderline superhuman. It is incredibly fascinating, and it's crazy unique because of the fact that there's like this on-ice acrobatic element to it while you're wearing these insane bulky pads. You know, you just don't get that in other sports. It's the body control, the awareness, and knowing where the puck is at all times. It's a supernatural ability for some of these individuals.
Did you see the in Game 6 Stars-Jets series? Jake Ottinger, wide open net, crawls over and makes the stop, like makes the save. Like that kind of thing is what you're talking about. It's just unreal what these goaltenders can do with their bodies in the thick padding that they wear. And be able to maneuver like that, it's amazing.
I'm not flexible, so that would disqualify me all the way from being in goal as a hockey player. But on top of that, the thing that I can't figure out, the hardest thing for me to figure out, right, is the amount of focus and the intense attention to the detail of where the puck is going while there is anywhere from 2 to 6 bodies jostling in front of you. And sometimes jostling into you and pushing you around and things like that. The fact that they're able to keep track of the puck and stay in the crease, it's insane to me because you quite literally have an obstructed view all of the time as an NHL goaltender.
It's like the way that Russell Wilson has described how he's able to throw the ball even though he's under 6 feet tall. And he's way shorter than his offensive lineman. Now he says he's able to see the gaps in between the linemen, or he does a lot of observation pre-snap because once they're up, he's not able to see much. Like it's got to be that kind of a thing that NHL goaltenders have to do too, because like you said, it's obstructed the whole game.
Like imagine if you took Major League Baseball catchers, all right? And then every pitch you threw at them was a wild pitch that was trying to get by them.
Yeah, they're not aiming for your glove.
They're not trying to throw to your glove. They're trying to throw the ball past you. And then instead of the batter being in the box, the batter is just standing there on the plate, and there's 3 other batters also standing there on the plate potentially. And you still have to find a way to make sure that ball doesn't pass you. Like if you put every Major League Baseball catcher in that scenario, are they going to stop a single ball? Probably not. So the ability to do this, and it's one of the great things about hockey, is there's just the movement in space backwards by the guys that are skating, right? The one-timers, the incredible stick handling ability, the vision that shooters have, that goaltenders have. It's unique in sports. And there are a lot of things that translate pretty directly from like, oh, look, there's a wide receiver who's tall and strong and fast, and he just ran, and the ball was high, so he jumped 97 feet into the air, and he snagged that thing. That's not that different from what we see in an NBA basketball game several times a day. You know what I mean? The hockey stuff is different. It's unique. It's special. It's by itself. It's singular in a lot of cases. And the stuff that does translate, the physicality, the big hits against the boards, obviously, those are a lot of fun too. But the more detail you pay attention to in hockey, the harder it is to explain to yourself how people get good at hockey.
Yeah, it's so true, and they're doing all of that. They're having that elite vision that you're talking about, that elite focus, the puck handling, the strength to be really physical on and hit really hard, all on skates.
All on
too,
skates,
by the way.
All while people are trying to take them off their feet, and all while they are pressing a level of cardiovascular intensity to borderline exhaustion in like 3 minutes at a time.
It's pretty incredible. And if you had asked me, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, if you'd asked me, would I have had a hot take on who might win the Stanley Cup, the Stanley Cup, right before we started the show, I'd have been like, absolutely not. I whatever the experts say is going to happen, I agree with that. But I've actually been tuning in the last 2 playoff runs after they announced the team was coming in here, and I'm a hockey convert now, OC. I'm proud to say it. Especially these playoffs have been a lot of fun. Going back to what I was saying about Florida repeating, it's easy to say the team with the best player, arguably the best player in the game, Connor McDavid, will win their first Stanley Cup, Edmonton Oilers. It's easy to say maybe the best playoff performer that's not a goaltender, the team who has that guy, Mikko Rantanen, and Dallas Stars, they're going to win the Stanley Cup. But you watch the Florida Panthers play, OC, they don't have the best goal scorers. They might have the best goaltender, and that's a big part of it. They certainly have the most physical, hard-hitting team on the ice, and they have the capability of scoring 6 goals on the road any given night. They did it twice against the Toronto Maple Leafs as they closed out that series in both Game 5 and Game 7. Like, they may not have the best goal scorers. They have enough goal scorers to keep up with the Connor McDavids, the Mikko Rantanens, the Leon Draisaitl's of the world, and certainly whoever the guys that Carolina is going to throw at him starting tonight. It's the physicality and how they're able to wear teams down, and probably having the best goaltender in the game that I think separates them.
I just pulled up. I was trying to get the current odds on who's with the Final Four. We're down to the Final Four. Yeah. Who is now the favorite to win the Stanley Cup? And because I'm terrible with Boolean operators, what I got was the 2025 Stanley Cup odds to open this past season. Vegas knows what they're doing, James. Edmonton Oilers were the favorite heading into the year. Plus 600, the best odds to win the Stanley Cup. Carolina Hurricanes were second best, plus 650.
Oh, my gosh.
Florida Panthers, plus 850. Dallas Stars, plus 900.
Hats off to Vegas.
Vegas had the top 4 right.
They basically predicted the conference finals. Good for them.
At the bottom, at plus 100,000 to win the Stanley Cup, the San Jose Sharks, who finished with the worst record in the NHL this year.
Wow.
The Utah Hockey Club was plus 20,000.
Good value bet. Wouldn't have worked out.
It wouldn't have worked out. Would have been throwing away your money. Isn't that incredible?
That is incredible.
I mean, they have to have revised this, right? Like, there's no way that they got this from the beginning.
Yeah, beginning of the season. Carolina, I think, might have been the most surprising of the 3 conference finals teams because Washington looked so good this year, and they had to go through Washington. Now, this is, you're saying, before the playoffs started, before the regular season started,
was the
so they wouldn't have known
odds.
that matchup. Yeah.
Opening odds to win the 2025 NHL, it was Edmonton, Carolina, Florida, Dallas on top. The current odds are Edmonton is a plus 240 favorite. Florida right behind them, plus 250. Dallas, plus 275. Carolina, plus 300.
Well, they got the top 4 right again just now.
Okay, no, James. Wild.
It is wild.
We're also down to the Final Four in the NBA playoffs. Andy Larson's going to join us and talk about that in 3 minutes. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network. Welcome to hour number 3 of the Sean O'Connell Show. JB Long is going to join us in 23 minutes. Right now, we're joined by Andy Larson, Utah Jazz NBA beat writer for the Salt Lake Tribune, friend of the program. Andy, welcome back. How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Doing all right. Can we cry snub for Collier or Filipowski finishing just outside of the all-rookie team voting?
I mean, I think maybe for Collier, right? He lost out by 1 point. Bub Carrington had 53 voter points, and Collier had 52. Had a very good assist year. Is always kind of the question with Collier was the shooting numbers, and they were bad. And especially his first half of the season wasn't very good. But neither was Bub Carrington's. But look, if it's hard for me, or even when I was just a fan, to get really that upset about 10th versus 11th in the rookie voting, right? It's one spot. It doesn't matter. It has no impact on their careers. They don't make any more money on it. Honestly, for a guy that you drafted at 28, it still has to feel good to be either 10th or 11th to be in the all rookie consideration. So it was a good rookie season from both Isaiah Collier and Kyle Filipowski, who finished 12th. But just finished short, and that's okay.
No contract spiff for making an all-rookie team?
No. I'm trying to remember. I think there is one for Rookie of the Year voting. You could get a larger max contract, but let's be honest, Isaiah Collier and Kyle Filipowski are not getting max contracts, so it doesn't matter anyway.
I guess I bet that maybe more apply to the first team guys if you were, because this is something that's put in every contract for the rest of your career, right? If you're all NBA first or second team, usually that escalates something in a contract. So I was actually somewhat surprised to hear you say that there's nothing for all rookie teams.
Yeah, I mean, the rookie contracts are all standard, across the NBA, and they're on that rookie scale. And so there's no necessarily a bump or bonus for that award, and honestly, even across the league, now those incentives have gone away a little bit. What happened is the league changed them to be basically count against the salary cap, even if you don't get them. And so teams are trying to give those out less than before because, obviously if you give out a potential bonus and then not end up giving out that bonus and it still counts against the cap, that's just cap money wasted, right? So, it's changed a little bit in the last couple of years.
I've been waiting 2 days to ask you this question because I know you'll be able to articulate what you mean better than we or I have tried to articulate exactly this. But a couple days ago, you tweeted out, "It's disappointing the Jazz are missing out on the NBA's parity era." Explain for me exactly what you mean.
Yeah, look, I mean, we now know from the conference finals teams that there will be a 7th new NBA champion in the last 7 years. And, for so long, the Jazz were the second best team or another quality team against dynasties, right? And, obviously the 90s Jazz heavily qualify here too. But, I think even the Jazz, the solid Carlos Boozer, Darren Williams Jazz, lost to the Lakers and couldn't find a way to get over that hump. And, I don't know that the peak Quinn Snyder Jazz would be favored to win in these series. I'd still probably take Oklahoma City, but that's still a really good team that would have had a shot in this era. I don't know that, Danny Ainge and Ryan Smith and team made the wrong choice to rebuild. I do think Donovan Mitchell is probably leaving. I think it was pretty clear that Quinn Snyder, Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert team had a ceiling. But it's just, if you look at kind of the cycles of NBA eras right now, it's the NBA's parity era, and that you do have a chance if you are in the mix to be a championship team, and the Jazz are not in the mix. And, it's just kind of disappointing that it's worked out that way.
So will the Jazz be able to get back in the mix before the new CBA, where a lot of people think that rules will be changed and made and influenced in order to help out the big market teams and to reduce the parity in the NBA?
I don't think that, by the time the next CBA expires, I don't think that that's realistically enough time. I don't also think that the CBA is going to favor big markets to really any realistic extent. I mean, if we're honest, like some of the big markets supported the changes that support small markets in this collective bargaining agreement because they didn't want to spend $300 million on payroll anyway. Even though they could, a lot of teams didn't want to chase those ambitions, like the Chicago Bulls or the Brooklyn Nets. Like these teams, there are a bunch of teams that, were in those conversations that supported kind of a harder salary cap, even if it would have made their teams better because they wanted to make more money. So I kind of think the same dynamic plays out in the next negotiations where, if anything, I could see teams getting more of a chance to keep their stars than currently. And maybe you get a franchise tag, or maybe you get more of a hometown bonus or discount or something, on against the salary cap for keeping guys in one place. But I don't think I anticipate a bunch of changes that make it better for big market teams. I kind of consider like I do think that the Players Union and the NBA especially is kind of looking at the NFL as a model and saying, how can we keep the parity era going? How can we keep it so every team feels like they have more of a hope or a chance?
Andy Larson, my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking all things NBA. We'll get to the playoffs here in just a second. I know I asked you last time we talked if you thought that the Warriors championship window was closed. And extending that thought, was there any team eliminated from the playoffs so far, or I guess one that could still be eliminated from the playoffs, that has seen their best chance go by the wayside?
I mean, the Warriors, once Steph Curry went down, the window is closed for that. I mean, we'll see. There's Brian Windhorst talked about them acquiring Giannis, right? And if you do that, you're right back in it because now all of a sudden you have a best player in his prime. And I kind of feel that way about a lot of these teams, So, like, I find it difficult to imagine Denver winning a championship as is right now because they are so shallow and so reliant on Jokic. And, I'm not sure I'm buying Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. for the rest of their careers. But if they are able to make a trade and, you get a couple of picks back in terms of you just pass time and now you have already given up the Aaron Gordon picks, maybe you can make a move that changes that team and makes them stronger. I mean, Boston is obviously a question mark with Jason Tatum's injury. They spend so much money on their payroll and now have a new owner that we don't really know whether or not they will spend on payroll. I could see them taking a step back and yet still being a really good team kind of in that mix. So it's, again, kind of in the parity era. It's hard to say like, hey, a team's window has definitely closed because, just if you are in the mix, you can probably find yourself in the conference finals. And frankly, what we saw in this playoff so far is just it's been the healthy teams that have moved forward as much of anything else. And so if you are able to get lucky, stay healthy, and it's easier said than done with older players, but then you do have a chance of winning it all.
All right, let's talk about these conference finals, Eastern and Western Conference Finals, starting this week. Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals tonight. Oklahoma City versus Minnesota. How do you handicap Minnesota's chances here against this crazy Thunder team?
Yeah, look, it was 2-2 in the regular season with some really good battles. They had this overtime 131-128, I believe, was the score of that game. That was just awesome. I do think, Oklahoma City can give Anthony Edwards problems, and this is going to be kind of the test for him. Is last year in the Western Conference Finals against the Dallas Mavericks, Jason Kidd and their defense was able to come up with a way to really slow Anthony Edwards down, and then they didn't have a Julius Randle to rely on yet either. But can the Thunder do the same against the Timberwolves? I'd be really worried about that if I were a Minnesota fan. On the other hand, I do think like having Rudy Gobert and kind of defensive game changers across Minnesota's lineup, I think Jaden McDaniels putting him on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander makes a lot of sense, and we could see that matchup work out for the Wolves as well. I'll be interested to see kind of if the Thunder can get the turnovers going the way they did in Game 7 against Denver, right? Like that was the thing that made them so special during the course of the regular season. In my mind, it was just how often they turned over teams, like so much more. They were clearly the number one team in the league by a lot in forcing turnovers and then getting the runouts on the other end. And they were able to do it against a really experienced Nuggets team, with the best player in the world, in Nikola Jokic. I think they'll probably be able to do that against the Minnesota Timberwolves offense as well. And so I think that's why the Thunder have to be favored in the series, and I think by a lot. But, well, not by a lot, I guess, by a significant amount. But I also do think that this is that the Wolves have a chance here. And it is Anthony Edwards' chance to show that he has grown since last year. If he has, then all of a sudden it gets a lot closer and could be another 7-game series that Minnesota can win.
Are we, is Salt Lake City, are we like adopting the Minnesota Timberwolves because of the Jazz connections? Is that how this has to work?
I think so, right? Like, I think with Joe, Rudy, Mike, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, right? Like, just 4 former Jazz guys, and 3 of those guys really pretty beloved here. Like, I think you'll see a lot more Minnesota Timberwolves fans than Oklahoma City Thunder fans in sports bars across Salt Lake City.
All right, that's fair. I like that. Rudy specifically, the matchups. I asked Gordy Chiesa this a little bit earlier. We've seen teams kind of try to take him out by going small and being perimeter heavy and fast. Is he going to be able to give the Timberwolves, 30 minutes a game in this series?
I think probably. I mean, one of the things that the Thunder relied on at the end of the year and have a little bit in the playoffs too is a 2-big lineup with Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein. And if you do that, then, I think it makes all the sense in the world to have Rudy in the game and defending one of those 2 guys and protecting the rim against, interior passing. And it adds up. But I do think Chris Finch has been pretty flexible about not playing Rudy when the situation calls for it. And I think we saw that a little bit in the first round series where, if he felt that if the Wolves were better off against the Lakers without Rudy on the floor, then he was fine with it. And you can just play Naz Reid at the 5 and Julius Randle at the 4 and go that way. And I think that kind of front court flexibility is one of the Wolves' really strong points. And so I do think, ultimately it depends how the Thunder play a little bit, but I expect probably this to be a pretty good series for Rudy, unless they just want to start switching everything on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and make him take mid-range shots. Kind of depends how many fouls are called against him. It's going to be really interesting to see, kind of what works. But I think, one of Chris Finch's strengths is playing with those different possibilities, and they've used it to good success in the first 2 rounds.
Andy Larson for another couple of minutes talking NBA playoffs here on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. If you take the 4 star players, like the best guy on each of these 4 remaining teams, who do you trust the most to have a great conference final? Because it's not like any of them are, long-toothed and weathered through these big-time, high-pressure situations.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen Brunson was your NBA Clutch Player of the Year this year, right? Like, I think there's a real case for him. On the other hand, I think you can make the opposite case for Karl Anthony Towns, and he's been less good in the playoffs at times. So, like, I think that's, not necessarily deciding that the Knicks are going to win that series. But, I trust Jalen Brunson pretty implicitly in pretty much any clutch situation. And then after that, look, Shai's going to win MVP. I thought he actually had a really good second round, especially in games 5, 6, and 7 when it really mattered to put up in 30 points in all those games on really good efficiency numbers. I think he's my clear, number 1 or number 2 in terms of guys I trust just because he is so good. Like that really helps when we're coming off in an MVP season, have that kind of confidence, have as many ways to score as he does. Kind of no matter how he's defended, I think he's going to have some level of success. And but we'll see. I mean, you're right that I think that is a big part of who ends up making it into the NBA Finals is which of their stars steps up the most.
Is Ant-Man the biggest star of these guys? Like, I'm talking fan appeal. We'll talk about him. He'll be on SportsCenter kind of star, the most appealing of these guys. Not just the best pure basketball player, certainly not this year's MVP. That's SGA, like you said. But is he the biggest star remaining in the playoffs?
Yeah, I think so. And I think some of that's because he's really charismatic. And frankly, he looks like Michael Jordan. Like, just his face looks like Michael Jordan's face a little bit.
He looks like Michael Jordan. I want so bad for the apocryphal tales of him being a secret love child to be true, because he actually looks like Mike.
Yes, he does. And plays a little like Mike, and so I think absolutely is the biggest star that if he does take that leap into the NBA Finals and even potentially winning a championship, then you start seeing Ant everywhere rather than just as one of the NBA's kind of fresh faces, new, one of the up and coming guys. But in order to be that guy, in order to be the face of the league, you have to actually win a title. You have to be a top 5 player, and I don't think Ant has been a top 5 player to this point in his career. He has the chance to change that if everything goes well in the rest of these playoffs.
Is the NBA better off when the Knicks are great?
That's always the fun argument. Look, I prefer, frankly, I root for small markets a little bit as a Utahn and as a, because I like it when the underdog succeeds. It is fun that we are having a Knicks-Pacers conference finals like we did in the 90s, like with these famous rivalries, and I think these games will get chippy too. I think Knicks fans is one of the best fan bases in the league. Going to Madison Square Garden, even when the Knicks were bad, that place was always buzzing. It's such a fun venue. And I think they deserve all the success and they want as they've had. But look, I'll be the Pacers, the underdog Pacers. I think are a fun story too, and deserve credit too, and deserve support too. So I don't yes, the bean counters probably want New York to be in the NBA Finals, so as many homes watch it as possible. But as someone who does not care whether or not ESPN makes money, I'm happy to see the Pacers in the NBA Finals too.
Before I let you go, this is not exactly an NBA playoffs question, but you've seen this, that the NFL is deciding whether or not NFL players will be allowed to play flag football in the Olympics. And we debated earlier on the show today the merit of flag football in the Olympics, period. But NFL players being involved in it, is there any shot that, Patrick Mahomes being an Olympian has some kind of Barcelona effect for football like the Dream Team did for basketball?
That's interesting. I mean, maybe I could see that a little bit, where just this kind of interesting thing, American thing, kind of gets more of a more leeway and more ground covered up in international for an international audience. I could see that a little bit. I mean, I'm thinking from a basketball point of view, the 3-on-3 tournament would have been infinitely more entertaining if the U.S.'s best player was not Jimmy Fredette and was instead Anthony Edwards, right?
Right.
It's just so I am sympathetic, and I do want to see kind of the best players of whatever that sport is out there. And so, for flag football, I want to see Pat Mahomes, and I want to see Saquon Barkley or whoever else, run. I think that would be fun. I don't know, it's impossible to say whether or not that actually gets any traction, but I am supportive of that move if the NFL goes that way.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to. I'm curious to see, because look, basketball is one of those games that you can just, you got to set up a hoop, but all you need is a ball and a hoop, and you can figure it out. You can play. American football is not that way, but flag football is. And whether or not it translates in 15, 20 years to more guys coming out of Serbia and Spain to play in the NFL would be very, very fascinating if we could trace it back to NFL players being in the Olympics playing flag football. Obviously, it's a little bit apples and oranges, but I could see it kind of going both ways, just flopping, or, hey, these are a bunch of big, fast guys. I'm a big, fast guy. Let me try this sport instead.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine the American flag football team getting quite the just eyeballs that the Dream Team did, right? That really captured people's imaginations.
Yeah.
I don't know that like the American flag football dream team does that because it is a different and goofy version of the sport. But like, why not though?
Yeah, give it a
It's
shot.
not like he's gonna get hurt, you know. It's flag football. It's fine.
We'll see. Now watch it be like the most injuries ever to great NFL players, and the league just is like, all right, we're done. All right. Great stuff as always. Appreciate you giving us the time today. Thank you, sir. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
No worries. Thanks.
That's Andy B. Larson, NBA and Jazz insider over at the Salt Lake Tribune. Great stuff from him, as is always the case. Take a quick one here. We come back with J.B. Long, NFL and L.A. Rams insider. We might end up with an affiliation with the Rams here at the ESPN Sports Radio Network. We'll see. Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. ESPN 792 FM. Excited to announce Dylan Gossett will be playing at the Complex November 11th. Tickets go on sale Thursday. We're going to give tickets away right here on the Sean O'Connell Show the rest of this week, starting tomorrow. So listen for your chance to win tickets. We're also giving away golf, 18 holes to Rose Park, powered by the Utah Golf Association and Mountain America Credit Union. That's coming up here in about 15 minutes. My next guest, if you were like me and you still miss the Pac-12 conference, you recognize him from those days. If you're a big Rams fan, you're going to be excited to hear from the voice, the radio voice of the L.A. Rams. JB Long, kind enough to give us some time here on the show today. JB, welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show. How are you, sir?
Sean, hope you're having a great show and a great day. Thank you for the invitation. It's good to reconnect.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you on. Are you aware of how excited people are about Britton Covey being a Los Angeles Ram? Is this something that has permeated the consciousness of the Rams insiders?
You know, I can't recall exactly when the news broke or where I was, but I do know that every Salt Lake City area code I have in my phone directory let me know before I found it, either through a press release or social media. So, you know, he was someone that obviously I admired when he was a Ute, and then also thought that he carved out a really nice role for himself in Philadelphia as an undrafted. So the Rams took a nice step forward on special teams last year, but I still think there's some upside growth, and having someone who's like led the league in kick returns in a young NFL career really stands to reason why the Rams would make that investment at this point. So I hope he catches on, and I think he can maybe make the team as a wide receiver 6 too, not just limited to special teams.
Well, that is kind of the question about, you know, his career path in the NFL. It was starting to happen for him as a spot use wide receiver in Philadelphia, and then of course the injury, which it often does for players. It'll kind of set you back. It's great to be a specialist, especially if you're elite at the job as a specialist, but you know, versatility is king when you're trying to make an NFL roster. So I think you kind of answered my question. Are they looking at him through that lens as well? Like, we're not just going to have you here returning punts and kicks, but let's see what you could do for us in offensive packages as well.
Well, Sean, I'd say a couple of things about that. One, the fact that they did it post-draft is telling, right, in terms of they're really looking at not just their active 53-man roster, but their game day 48. Like, who could we bring in to get a helmet that would really make us better on Sundays? So the timing of that, I think, speaks to the potential they see. And then, as you probably know, like the Rams they live in 11 personnel. They run 3 receiver sets more than any team in the National Football League since Sean McVay took over in 2017. So depending on the roster in the year, they will keep an extra receiver or 2, especially if he has a role on teams. So he obviously has to come in and show that he can fill that role. But in a post-Cooper Kupp universe, if they can upgrade in the kicking game and have someone with that flexibility to have a role at receiver, I think that makes a ton of sense, and it's going to be obviously up to Britton to earn that, you know, through the spring and summer.
Give me a sense of, you know, I guess, not just football-wise, but the vocal leadership that this Rams team has, because that's something that Britton Covey uniquely has found a way to fill a void or to be that guy. Even as a young player in Philadelphia, he was, you know, veterans took him aside and said, hey, you know what you're doing? We want you to fill this role for the special teams at least. And obviously he was that way at the University of Utah. I mean, look, I guess he read his grandfather's books. The guy just knows how to influence people. And I don't think it's a contrived thing. I think it's a very natural leadership ability, even for someone who's oftentimes the smallest guy in the locker room, and he's not going to be the oldest guy in the locker room. Is that something that will be valuable to the Rams?
Yeah, it's not all related to Cooper Kupp, but let's face it, like the Rams are losing an adult in the locker room and at the facility, and someone who models the way as a professional. Cooper not only has the playing credentials, but I think he had, you know, the camaraderie and the leadership, the captaincy that you're referencing. So to bring in someone who's 28 now, he's been through a few different walks of life, even someone to partner with Puka Nacua. And Puka was guided by and mentored Cooper Kupp. He always attributes his early success to Cooper and the mentorship that he provided. Who's going to fill that void? Who's going to be his running mate, his peer, his counselor? I think Britton's someone who could see the game similarly and could provide some of those same attributes. Now, they're not going to ask Cubby to be, a Super Bowl MVP caliber receiver necessarily, but there is some of that softer side that I do agree every good football team and facility has. And the other thing I would say, too, is if you want to play in this offense, you got to be able to speak McVay. And it takes a smart, seasoned, cerebral, skilled player to do it the right way. And some of that, intellectual, institutional knowledge has been lost because Cup is now up in Seattle, and hopefully Cubby can replace some of it. Sure, I buy into that.
Well, you just referenced the next guy that, of course, I was going to ask you about. Puka Nacua has emerged as a star in the league. Is he ready, you think, to kind of take over without an obvious, hey, if he's Batman, I'm Robin, or maybe I'm more from a talent standpoint Batman, but he's at least Alfred, and I got to listen to him. Is Puka ready to take on this new role without Cooper Kupp?
If I'm being honest, I think he did already. There was a point last season where it became apparent to anyone who was watching the Rams on a week-in and week-out basis that Puka not only was the number one receiver and the number one skill threat on the Rams roster, but he had, I think, firmly entrenched himself as a top 5 receiver in the National Football League. At least I was stumping for and making that case. There's no question in my mind that Puka was a significantly better player in his sophomore season than he was in his rookie of the year caliber season when he debuted. And he wasn't rewarded with some of the same accolades because of the time he missed due to injury and even half a game because he was ejected from a win in Seattle, I beg your pardon. But if you look at the underlying metrics, Puka took it to the next level last year. And that was with, I would say, less help around him than probably the Rams were anticipating. I think that ties significantly into the move for Davante Adams this year. I think having a true X-receiver, a future Hall of Fame receiver like Davante Adams, who can win off the line of scrimmage, win against any kind of coverage, including press coverage, I have to believe that that's going to have positive ramifications for Puka Nacua and what he's capable of in year 3.
JB Long is my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, radio voice of the LA Rams, NFL insider. So we started the show today. I was talking roster construction. There's similarities now with how certain teams have to do it in college football and a hard cap NFL league. My favorite team, I'm sure you'll be excited to hear, is the San Francisco 49ers. And look, the Niners, they're just paying their top guys at every position, like top salaries. I don't love the philosophy here. And I think of this Rams team that when they were chasing a Super Bowl, it was like, all right, let's load up with these veterans. Let's get this thing. And then my perception of it, and I think a lot of fans around the league who weren't following the Rams all that closely were just like, okay, now the fall off is going to happen. They got the ring, and now you're going to have like a decade where you don't get to compete because you sacrifice too much. And it hasn't happened. How and why? Is there a stated roster construction team philosophy on, staying where this team has found a way to stay?
I love all of the questions wrapped up in what you just said. And I'll play to my audience, including you as a 49er fan, in just a second. But what I really find fascinating is that Sean and Kyle are so often linked at the hip, and rightly so. And yet their results are so variably different. And what I mean by that is, save for one season, the Super Bowl hangover season after the Rams lifted the Lombardi Trophy, they've been right there. They've been a winning team. Sean's already the winningest coach in franchise history. Whereas Kyle's been kind of more boom or bust, right? Like they've been consistently awesome, except when they haven't, and then they've been really bad.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of those moments where the paradigm of the NFL is such that might actually be the better approach, right? When you're bad, just be bad. Wear it in 1 year sample sizes and then get to where you're trying to get back to sooner rather than later. And all that said, now I think is the time where the Niners have to adopt some of the Rams playbook. And the Rams don't come out the other side of that down year in 22 if they don't draft, I think it was 24 players in the next 2 classes, many of whom competed for or won Rookie of the Year on both sides of the football. If they don't make shrewd moves in college free agency and veteran free agency. And then if the players that you do pay can't stay healthy and deliver. And so I could spin it one of two ways. Does this year for the Niners have like a last dance type of feel, like before the credit card comes due, can you capture it one more time before Father Time catches up with McCaffrey and Trent Williams and others? Sure. But if they did hit on some of those draft picks, I also have a ton of confidence in the organizational stability that they have, including their GM and head coach. And I'll land on this and throw it back to you, Sean, which is to say, the other upshot of finishing last in that division is you play a fourth-place schedule this year, as I'm sure you're well aware, whereas the Rams play the Eagles, your Niners get the Giants. Whereas the Rams go to Baltimore to face the Ravens, you get the Cleveland Browns. And whereas the Rams host the Detroit Lions, it's Caleb and the Chicago Bears. Like, that's worth at least a half a game, if not a game in the standings before they even kick it off, don't you think?
I think you're absolutely right, and that is, I guess, the silver lining of having a rough year last year. I wear the fan glasses when I look at the 49ers, and I'm just like, man, I hope that these decisions, personnel decisions, these contract decisions, including the Purdy contract, I hope they pay off because, it felt like the Super Bowl window was wide open, and it's amazing how it happens in the NBA, it happens in the NFL. It starts to close, and when it does, it can slam shut on you really quick. So hopefully they could prop that thing open a little bit longer in San Francisco. Back to the Rams, though, the most important defensive player on this Rams team is who?
I think it's become Jared Verse. I mean, I think Kobe Turner the last 2 years has had a huge influence, and I think has helped them survive life after Aaron Donald. But last year, they improved without, I think, the greatest player in franchise history. Think about that. The greatest player in franchise history retires, and his side of the football gets statistically better. I can't believe that I'm still putting those sentences together.
That's pretty crazy.
And it's because of Jared Verse and his Florida State teammate Braden Fisk, who also had a Rookie of the Year caliber season as well. It's because I think collectively they were bought in and really just capitalized on some fortuitous moments. But when you think about the progress they made on defense last year with a first-year defensive head coach, or coordinator, I should say, in Chris Shula, and then you contextualize it by saying they were spending the fewest amount of dollars on defense of any team in the league, what they really accomplished last year was nothing short of extraordinary. And I think, Sean, it gives them the confidence and the belief that, yeah, that window keeps trying to close and we're just jumping on the crowbar with 2 feet to pry it back open, because all of a sudden, whereas the Niners had the cheat code that was a Super Bowl-worthy quarterback on a rookie deal, now the Rams have defensive tackles and edge rushers on rookie deals. And we know the price point for those positions has gone way up as well. So if you have a multiple of rookie deals at those positions, you can afford to bring back Stafford in his twilight years. You can afford to continue to invest in a Devontae Adams. You can spend your dollars on offense knowing that your draft capital was so productive on defense.
Which Ram is going to make the best flag football Olympian?
Oh, I love this question. So here's what I don't know. Quarterbacks are eligible?
It looks like it.
Okay, I think the easy answer is going to be quarterback, right? But I want to be respectful of lifelong flag football players and the fact that there's certainly some nuances to the game where you can't just plug in Patrick Mahomes and say, go win a gold medal. Maybe they will. I'll be curious to see who wins that American competition to be the U.S. quarterback. But I'm thinking, more like what would Justin Jefferson look like playing flag football or on defense? Like if you got a high-end corner, what attribute could that bring to a flag football team? I would love to say Puka because of who I'm speaking to, but I think so much of Puka is you got to tackle him 12 times per game. And if you're telling me it's flag football, he's not as shifty and elusive as maybe some of his counterparts. So, I would probably default to Matthew Stafford in the interim, assuming that quarterbacks are eligible, because I think he's still one of the top 5 throwers of the football on the planet.
Will you be putting your name in the hat to call Olympic flag football? I mean, it's going to be right there in the backyard.
Man, I would love to. Yeah, LA 2028. Consider this my official submission. My candidacy begins here on your show.
We'll support that campaign. We'll donate to that campaign, JB.
The hard part is still projecting 3 years out, right? The life cycle of football is so fast that the individual nominees, one per team, I think is the cap.
Yes.
They could still be yet to be drafted. Like, what if what if a Manning is that guy, right? Like,
yeah. Wow.
There's still a long way to go, but a Jaden Daniels or someone like that could be fascinating to see what the stature looks like in 2028 and which teams are going to be more amenable to losing their franchise guy for that period of time.
Do you think flag football in the Olympics could change the status of tackle football in the world?
A fascinating question. It comes at a time where the NFL is working so hard to grow the game globally, right? Playing games this year, for instance, not just in London, but Brazil and Dublin and Madrid and Germany as well. The Rams are going to play a game in Australia next year. I think a rising tide could lift all boats. I think it's certainly easier to grow the game of football internationally through flag football as opposed to all the infrastructure you need to play contact tackle football.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think they work against each other so much as they would complement each other. And especially if you're bringing NFL star power to the Olympics, then I don't have this verbatim, but I have to think the league office believes that one of the best ways they can showcase the NFL via the Olympics is to have their biggest names and biggest brands participate and thrive, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the case. Last thing before I let you go, Rams Maui camp. Did you campaign for this? Is this something that you manifested, a mini camp in Maui?
That's right. Yeah, I got that as a personal favor. My kids get out of school the week before, and I was kind of going to my superiors saying, hey, my wife really wants to take the kids to Hawaii this year. Is there a week where you could cut me loose and we could just make that happen and plan accordingly? I said, well, hold the phone. Why don't we just ask Sean and Matthew and Puka if they all want to come, and we could just kind of do like a 3-day paid vacation and connect all the dots. So one of the many, many reasons I feel so blessed and privileged to work for the Los Angeles Rams is that they're willing to do that just for the Long family.
That's pretty cool. You've got a lot of pull, a lot of influence. If you need someone to carry the luggage to the Rams Maui camp, I will volunteer as tribute. Man, what a cool thing that they're doing that on the islands.
Yeah, they're not afraid of saying yes, right? And not everything that they've endeavored in now the decade that I've been with them has been gangbusters, but more often than not, when they're willing to think outside of the box, they do kind of revolutionize the way that teams play preseason games, post-training camp. How do they draft, going off-site for their draft? So I'm not surprised that they're going to be the first team to play in Melbourne, Australia, either in a regular season game next year. Hopefully I can hang on long enough to be a part of that trip too.
Well, I hope that's the case for you, and I appreciate you giving us some time today, JB. Thank you.
Always good to connect with the good folks in Salt Lake City, and appreciate the invitation. Have a great rest of your show and your day.
JB Long, radio voice of the LA Rams, new team of Britton Covey, and obviously the place where Puka Nacua has made his star turn in the NFL. All right, we'll give away some golf next. 18 holes to Rose Park, powered by the Utah Golf Association and Mountain America Credit Union. Sean O'Connell Show wrapping up next on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. All right, 18 holes to Rose Park. Festival of Tees continues. Utah Golf Association, Mount America Credit Union. Fred Warner, former BYU linebacker, current San Francisco 49er, is now the highest paid linebacker in the NFL for the second time in his career. A 3-year deal worth how many $1 million is the extension signed by Fred Warner? 877-353-0700 for 18 holes to Rose Park. Make sure you're listening live to The Drive. If you don't find the Sean O'Connell Show or The Drive live, you could do it on the ESPN 700 app. You could do it on your smart speaker. You could find us wherever you find your podcast. ESPN700sports.com has an on-demand section. We are everywhere. Isn't that right, Spence Checketts?
We are everywhere. Who are the – so I come from a family of tried and true blue BYU. I know. I'm the oldest of 6. I went to Utah. I chose truth. They all went to BYU. And Fred Warner seems to be like a BYU guy that could be universally respected because he's such a badass.
Yeah, I've said this for many years. If you're a hardcore Utah fan, you get to take one Coug each year and be like, I wish he was on our team. I like that guy.
Yeah.
Fred Warner could be that guy. He's now a San Francisco 49er, so I embrace him wholeheartedly.
So my brothers have always said Weddle and Alex Smith.
Sure.
2 Utes, they're like, no hate, just nothing but respect for those two. Warner's got to be on the list.
Yeah.
As a Coug. Who else?
Kyle Van Noy.
Yeah, got to
100% Kyle Van Noy, Jan Jorgensen. I loved Brandon Ogletree when he was down there.
Okay.
He was always trying to fight people, which I like.
You probably got to know, I got to know Jan a little bit. He was doing some radio.
Jan's one of my best friends in the world.
Sweetest guy in the world.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah.
On the staff at Utah State now with Bronco.
Yeah, that's right. You probably got to know a lot of those guys in a way that I didn't. But yeah, it's hard to have anything but respect for Fred Warner. That dude is an animal.
He just is. He's a monster. And, he just signed an extension. This is the second time in his career. He's only been playing 7 years where the San Francisco 49ers were like, you're the best linebacker in the league. Let's show you that financially.
Did you see this when he was at the Y?
No, absolutely. Nobody did.
Because I can remember, Kyle came before him, and Kyle begat Fred. Okay, if we want to go biblical. Okay, if we want to go biblical. Kyle begat Fred. And then I think a lot of people thought, Fred's kind of like Kyle light. And, of course, Kyle's had a great career, but Fred might be the best linebacker in pro football.
And that, he ended up being the best off-ball linebacker, and Kyle Van Noy, I think, is actually in this latter part of his career. He's kind of excelling as a pass rusher, right? I mean, he set the career high sacks for himself last year, and that's just the evolution of him as a player and the game itself and his skill set, and he's got that length and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean it's actually crazy rare that somebody ends up being a better player in the NFL than they were in college, but Fred Warner is a better player at the NFL level than he was in college. Steve Smith was from the University of Utah.
For sure Steve was.
Yeah, I mean, obviously. And you don't see it a ton. You do see it a lot from Utah wide receivers. Like Tim Patrick is a better NFL wide receiver than he was college wide receiver.
When he has a quarterback that – should I elaborate or we'll leave that there? Who are some other crossovers? BYU-Utah crossovers that the other fan base has no. Andre Miller was one for a long time.
I mean, Britton Covey, whether BYU fans wanted to admit it or not, they had to love the guy.
Well, you better love him because he might be president of your school when he's done being governor or whatever he wants to do.
Yeah, profit at some point.
All the way to the top?
Well, I mean, why not?
I'm not. Look,
aim high, Spence.
I would not put that past him at all.
Aim high if you're
Britton Covey could be the prophet, the governor, and the president of BYU all at once.
Why not? Let's make it happen.
NIL through the roof.
Yeah.
Well,
now, there's. I think that BYU fans, I think, had a certain affection for Garrett Bowles because of his backstory.
Sure.
There was some of that. He was only at Utah for a year, so you didn't have a ton of time to develop hatred for him.
Yep. Ute fans. Universal love and respect for Max Hall.
Don't do that.
I'm just trying to come up with names off the top of my head.
Don't do that. If you're a Utah fan, you probably liked watching the way Harvey Unga played. Didn't like what he was able to do to you, right? And look, there's those guys where you're just like, I wish I had him on my team.
Yeah.
And then there's the guys that you're just like, I don't care how good he is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want Austin Collie wearing red.
Sure.
Which,
Let me throw a name at you.
Okay.
Because sometimes somebody may transcend the entire situation. Steve Young. What do you think Ute fans think about Steve Young?
I mean, Steve Young was a much better player in the NFL than he was at BYU. And he's now so far removed from that he's a San Francisco 49er in the fans of a fan, right? Like, was he a BYU Cougar? Sure. But it's more like his impact in the game of football was as a San Francisco 49er. It just was kind of a thing that he ended up playing.
Jim McMahon probably should have been a Ute.
Yeah.
Stories of Jim McMahon, truly. Like, there is a story that I have never been able to fully corroborate. Hobble Creek Golf Course, you're a golfer. Down south, gorgeous track. I don't have to tell you.
You don't have to tell me.
Stories of Steve Young showing up with a 12-pack and playing buck
Jim
naked.
McMahon. Yeah.
Did I say Steve Young?
Yes.
Jim McMahon, not Steve.
By the way,
do we have a dump button? We do not.
Breaking news: Steve Young, who does
that
come
would
on
be a
Spencer's
story.
show every now and again.
He does. That would be a story. But Jim McMahon, Hobble Creek Golf Course, 12-pack Miller Lite, just buck naked playing golf.
Can I tell you how much more universal the BYU appeal would be if they still had a guy like that every year?
Sure.
Like,
love it.
People would love that.
Jake Ratzlaff, if you're listening, drive to Hobble Creek tomorrow, 12-pack of suds, play golf buck naked, and you will be universally accepted.
Just like a wild man.
Yeah.
There's just a one per year or two, like one on offense, one on defense per year that BYU is allowed to exempt from the honor code, and that guy just is carte blanche.
This is such a good idea. You know, I'm texting Kalani and A-Rod during the show. Who's the one dude that we're going to give the exemption to that can golf at Hobble Creek buck naked while just down into 12-pack?
It'd be great.
Yeah.
Be perfect.
Any thoughts about who that could be? I don't know the roster enough as far as who these young men are off the field.
I don't know. I don't know if there's anyone down there who's a crazy man right now.
I'll tell you what. Some of the craziest kids I grew up with were Jewish kids. I mean, I don't know what Jake does off the field, but he's the one dude that isn't, partaking of the.
I said this many times when I was doing Pac-12 radio with Jeff Schwartz.
Shout out Jeff Schwartz,
who's obviously Jewish. I didn't have the privilege of growing up with any Jewish kids.
Yeah, there was a ton where I grew up, and bat mitzvahs, that's a good time, man. They're having a good time.
They look like they're a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah, they're having a good time.
And you were going to like my Super Sweet 16 style.
Oh, yeah. No, this is not like at a church, gym.
You were going to like the
Ritz-Carlton.
Mace's place.
Yes. And it got weird. It got weird. So maybe Retzlaff gets a little loose off the field. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
All right.
I love this idea. One BYU player a year, exempt from anything.
It's called the Porter Rockwell exemption.
Love it.
Because he was a lunatic.
Yes, he was.
Right? The Danites. You get to have one Danite on each side of the ball. Maybe three because, special teams. Kickers and punters are weird anyway.
Danites work. We can't use Lamanites because they're on the roster anyway, and they might be well-behaved. It's one of my favorite Chris Camerani bits. He's a Lamanite. That's what he claims.
Wow. All right. I like it.
That comes from him, so it's not coming from me.
By the way, are you guys not impressed that I even know what Danites are?
Wildly
as someone who
impressed.
did not grow up in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints?
I'm impressed you know who Porter Rockwell was. You married into the fold.
I did.
Yeah.
But, dude, Porter Rockwell's a badass.
Yes, he is.
Awesome stories about
for
Porter Rockwell.
sure.
There needs to be a major motion picture about the life of Porter Rockwell.
It would be phenomenal. Completely. I mean, you're married into the fold, and now I could say you were born of goodly parents. We could go biblical, we could go scripture all day. James knows the deal.
David Harbour as Porter Rockwell.
Love it.
All right, let's write a script. We'll pitch it.
Love it.
Stay tuned for the drive with Spence Checketts. $63 million, by the way, is the answer for Fred Warner's contract. Sean O'Connell show's over. We'll do it again tomorrow on ESPN 700